Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mastering Canva, Intro to Mastering Canva, I should say. My name is Philip Weldon, and I'm going to be taking you for the next 3 hours, hopefully, through everything there is to know to get started in Canva. And just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded and will be accessible after today's session, obviously. So you'll be able to go back and replay if there's anything you've seen. It's quite practically heavy, so we'll be exploring Canva itself, and we'll actually be walking through the software, the online software, so that you can get the most out of it. So I'm just going to give it another 2 or 3 minutes for everyone to arrive, give everyone a chance to get settled in. Hopefully you can all hear me, etc. I'm sure you can. I've tested everything, so we're all good. You do not need to have your microphone or your video enabled if you don't wish to. It's not mandatory at all. This is, as I say, a very practical session. It's designed to get you started with Canva and so on. But if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask. You know, either unmute yourself or you can leave a message in the chat box. If anyone is having difficulty with either, you can also reach out to me after the call today. I'll pop my email into the chat box at the end, just so you have it, just in case there's any access issues, etc. Okay, the webinar will be hosted afterwards today, just to let anyone knowing that's turning up now. It will be hosted after on YouTube in a private area, so you will be accessible. So that means you are being recorded. So only the screen, however, that you see now, so the actual slideshow is being recorded. It's not going to pick up anybody's video or anything like that. If you do talk, it will obviously pick up the audio. So just to let you know in advance, just in case you do have a question. If you prefer to ask, though, you can do so in the chat box as well. So I encourage questions at any point throughout the day. Canva is quite a meaty topic, and there's quite a lot to get to know, as there is with any of this kinds of software, right? So as I say, feel free to ask away, and you're all very welcome. So just give it another minute or so, and I think we should be good to go. Just as I said, really want to give everyone a chance to get settled in here. We're expecting a fullish house today, so it'll be good to get started as quickly as possible. To be fair to those of you who have turned up for 9:30, appreciate it as well. I'm coming to you today from County Meath. I'm coming to you from the home studio, so don't judge me too harshly. We usually have a little bit more space, but doing a little bit of renovation at the moment. So the other thing to know is that this software, unfortunately, doesn't do noise cancellation. So if you're muted automatically and you want to be unmuted, you just need to unmute yourself. That's because there is no feedback, as I said. So we will just see how we're going for time. I think we're good to go, and I'm just going to do one final check before I get started to make sure I have all my screens so that you're able to see Canva in all its glory when I do load up the practical. So again, this webinar is being recorded. I'll just say it before we start. So it will be available on YouTube in a private section afterwards, only accessible to yourselves. So you'll be able to go back and replay at any point should you need to. Canva is a beast to conquer, as we've said. Hopefully today will give you the introduction that you need to get started with it. But without further ado, let's, I think, jump into it and not delay, okay? So you're very, very welcome. Thank you for choosing to spend the next 3 hours with me going through the monster that is Canva. Okay, it is a lot of fun to use, I'm not going to lie, and I almost feel like I'm cheating the system here today, being able to deliver a workshop about creativity and using this kind of software, because I know that when you're running businesses, working in organizations, managers, owners, etc., working for different bodies and so on, there's a lot of different work you need to do. But something like Canva almost feels like an escape from the day-to-day, because it lets you bring out your creative juices and try to think about, you know, how you're going to create something. And that's the best part about Canva, is it gives you that kind of freedom to create, as we'll see. Okay, so just very briefly, I'm not going to spend too long on any of this kind of intro stuff. It's just so you know who I am, and just give you a chance to introduce yourselves. My name is Philip Weldon. Obviously, I'm the managing partner of a company called Titan Digital, based in Dublin, working today from Meath. I'm a trainer and a mentor for a number of different local enterprise offices throughout the country. My specialization is in tourism, retail, and not-for-profits. They're kind of broad statements, aren't they? But what we find is, within marketing, within this kind of realm of business, and within these industries, a lot of the basic kind of frameworks we use, etc., are transferable. So that's what we mean. Now, obviously, every business, every organization has its own issues, has its own problems that need solving. But when it comes to the frameworks we use, etc., they're all pretty transferable. And yes, I do use Canva, as you will see, on a daily basis. You'll actually see my dashboard as well. And there isn't any corporate any corporate secrets or confidential information in my dashboard. So I'll be showing you the premium version and the free version. And it is a part of my daily toolkit. If you can't tell, I used it to create this presentation as well. So it can be used for any number of things that you need it to do. So what I'll just ask you to do very briefly, I won't ask you to unmute yourself because sometimes people find it a little difficult. I'll just ask you to drop your name, your business, and your contact information in the chat. Now, I'm aware that there are others joining us from Wexford County Council today, so you're all very welcome too. So if you just like to leave your name, obviously, and say hello, that's absolutely fine as well. But for businesses that are here, perhaps it's a chance to also do a bit of networking. Feel free to tell us what industry you're working in, what your main products and services are. That can help me to kind of personalize the session. I suppose Canva is in itself, one of those things where you can't really do a lot of, individualization, but we can certainly maybe work through some examples and things like that if necessary. Just while you're doing that, I will say that we tend to use, fake businesses for examples and things like that. You'll see that in a slide in a few minutes when we're finishing up with the kind of how you're going to think about using Canva. But really what I'm going to be doing is using some fake businesses, and one of the main ones I like to use is a product-based giftware business, because that covers a multitude of things that you can do with Canva, and you can kind of think on your feet as you go with that as well. So I see Wexford County Council. Wexford County Council, you're very welcome. I have to be on my best behaviour here today. Right? Sylvia, you're very welcome. Edwina, Liz. And I find this kind of mixed fun because it really gives us a different focus, right? Public and private sector coming together in a training session like this. And I saw the names that said, right, I need to be a bit more broad last week. So, yeah. Mini Chili, Karen, you're very welcome. Daria, you're very welcome. Sylvia, I've said good morning. Edwina. So again, just giving everyone a chance to say good morning. Hello. Okay, well, we're all saying good morning. I'll come back in a second to get Mariani. And Mariani, you're very welcome. So different types of businesses, and of course, folks joining us from Wexford County Council today in specific roles, you're all very welcome. I'm going to try and cover a multitude, of use cases for you today, and hopefully give you sort of an introduction into how Canva can speed up your workflow, regardless of the context you're in, be it public or private sector. So you'll get hopefully a well-rounded introduction to the software, as we'll call it today, the cloud software. So first thing we're going to be looking at when it comes to Canva itself is we're going to look at how to set up a Canva account if you've never done it before, right? I'm willing to bet that most of you have, but just to get the basics covered, I'm going to show it to you. It'll take me about a minute to do. Okay, so that's why that's there. We're going to be looking at, obviously, how to create content in Canva. That goes without saying. And there is every type of content under the sun you can think of that you can create in Canva. You can use it for your online digital presence. You can use it for your print media. You can use it for your presentations. You even create websites in it if you want. I don't really do that. That's not my cup of tea. But certainly, if you're only getting started, you want to do things like wire prototyping and wireframes. Those of the website designers in the room may know what I'm talking about there. At a really basic level, Canva may give you some tools to easily get started with that. And likewise, there's other areas you can bring it into as well. Billboard ads, digital billboards, all sorts of things. We've used it for those as well for a theatre festival in Dublin, and not the one that you think of. So we'll also be looking at how to obviously navigate around Canva as well in terms of the menu and the content creation screen. It is quite complex to start with, but once you start using it, it gets simpler and simpler, right? And it's just a case of using it again and again. And to be honest with you, at the start of using Canva many years ago, I was very opposed to it. Maybe because it was a sense of elitism. I wanted to keep using Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign. But the more I used it, the more time I was saving, and the easier it was to use. The more I kind of came around to it. And in the end, I kind of said, this is going to be my main thing that I use to create day-to-day media for multimedia for different purposes, and that's where we've kind of ended up. So it's a great piece of kit. We're going to look at how to create videos in Canva as well. You can also do that. That's not an aside in any way. It's all built into the same editor. We'll very briefly look at presentations. I know that's not going to be for everybody today. We're going to look at how to export content and then using and exploring the elements and so on. I mean, there's so much that you can do. But what you'll find, as I said, is it's going to be quite easy to hone in on the main things that you need to do within the first couple of minutes of the session, okay, or within the first couple of minutes of exploring it. Just some basic housekeeping. Just make sure that your name is correctly or is the one that you signed up with the for this webinar today. Excuse me, I'm getting tongue twisted already. So if it's not, just let Angie or your contact know. I would appreciate that. It's just so I can do the roll at the very end and match up the names, etc. I just ask that you keep your mic muted. It's not that I don't want to hear questions or anything like that. Quite the opposite. It's just that the software unfortunately doesn't have feedback protection. So while it's great for everything else, feedback protection is the one area that I'm often let down in. We'll take about a 15-20 minute break at 10:45 a.m. I'd say about 15 minutes because there's quite a lot to get through. I put 20 minutes down just in case folks need a bit longer. And just to let you know, once again, for those of you who've just joined us, this webinar is being recorded and you will be able to play it back after the session today. It'll take me a little while to upload it. The internet's a bit slow. Apologies for that. But once I get it uploaded to YouTube, you'll be able to go back and replay the key parts, okay? The only thing that's being recorded is the screen that you see now. So this content screen here where it says Canva is your content creation hub. It won't pick up your videos. It will pick up your audio if you do ask a question. So I just need to make you aware of that. So what is Canva and why should you be using it? Well, look, Canva can be and will be your content creation hub if you love it as much as I do. Canva for Business is a very powerful tool that allows you to create stunning visuals. It's a lovely statement for your business, from social media graphics to marketing materials. The best part is it's cloud-based. So what that means is your designs, your content is stored in the cloud. It's stored on Canva's systems themselves. You have a certain amount of space for each tier of account you're using. There's a free tier and there's a premium tier and then there's a Teams tier. Basically, it means different prices, okay, with different levels of features and so on. But at the end of the day, it's all stored in the cloud. So you can bring it with you where you go. There's a mobile app, there's a tablet app, there's a PC and Mac app. There's obviously cloud-based desktop that you can run or in browser. So it's universally accessible, quite literally. I prefer to use it in the browser. Don't know why. There's no particular reason for that. It's just the way I do it. So I highly, highly recommend it. If at the end of the day it doesn't look like it's for you, then that's fair enough. But I'm hoping that the accessibility at the very least will be the main selling point. It sounds like a salesperson for Canva, and I'm not. It's just I really love it. So what is it and how can you use it? Well, there's so many different things that you can do with it. We've already mentioned the basics, but within the software itself, and when you're creating what you're trying to do or trying to make, essentially, be it for print or for digital media. It can be your graphic design software. It can be your presentation maker. It can be a photo editor. It can be a branding toolkit. Branding really only comes in for premium accounts, so slight warning there. It's an AI tool as well. Now, the AI tool is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I'm just going to put a little preamble here, though. When it comes to things like image creation and video creation, it isn't great with people. Okay, it can be quite scary with people. Every now and again, I run a training like this, and someone comes up with an idea and says, "Oh, I want a person swimming or something," and it gets a bit scary. So basically, with the AI tool, I'd say it's still a work in progress, and there's better AI tools out there, things like content creation. So, for example, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, and so on, that are available through ChatGPT and so on. Just so you're aware. And also, it's your social media content creation toolkit. Okay, so this is what the template section looks like just before we get started. This is the preview you get in the cinema before we get started on the meat of today. What I want to do just really quickly, and I promise you this will only be for 5 or 10 minutes, is just run through some basics as to how you can approach content creation. This is more, I suppose, for businesses than perhaps for organizational attendees here, but certainly for manager owners, for people working in businesses that are using Canva. You need to be aware of who you're creating for at the end of the day. Now, this, of course, is going to be for others as well, but this is particularly true when it comes to getting in new customers, acquiring new customers, because at the end of the day, the person on the other end of the screen is a human being. So when it comes to our marketing, what we tend to do, and I'm talking about digital and physical traditional marketing as well, we start with a customer profile. So a person in mind as to who we're creating for. Okay, so we use a customer profile to try and understand what people want to see, read, etc. And my recommendation for most businesses that I would work with on this is be laser focused in your approach. So don't just create a piece of content that looks bland, that looks ordinary, that looks like it would fit in a modern art gallery where nobody really knows what anybody's talking about. No offense to any modern artists out there. But when it comes to this kind of thing, what we're looking for is a much more humanized approach. So focus on a core customer and or person that is relevant to the organization you're working in with who you're trying to reach. Okay, so an example of this, and this is for our giftware store that I mentioned a second ago, an example of a customer profile. This is one here. This is one we actually did in a workshop before Christmas in it was Carlo, and I hope it was Carlo anyway. Time is moving quickly, and we came up with a customer profile, or at least the attendees came up with a customer profile called Kirsty Crindle, right? Obviously a bit of a pun on the name, but the idea was that we were targeting a person who was looking to buy giftware. Okay, or this ideal customer would buy our giftware based on the problem that they were having and how we were going to solve that problem. Okay, so we came up with some basic demographic information: how old she was, 39, that she was female, she's a senior accountant living in Lucan, working in Lucan, she's cohabiting with her partner, she's 2 children in primary school in Skerries, County Dublin. And the problem is she's a cost-conscious customer who's looking for gift ideas for Christmas. Okay, so where do we come in that? We're obviously a giftware store. We need to provide her some value. We need to showcase her products. She's on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, so we need to create content for Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. We need to be aware of what she likes doing in her spare time, etc. Who her influencers' favorite brands are. But ultimately, look, you're not going to care about any of this, are you? All you're going to want to know is that you will have a profile like this, okay, for your business, hopefully, if you're doing digital marketing in a smart way, in a strategic way, okay? And what this will help you to do is to create or get a picture in your mind of a person as to who you're speaking to, okay? And when it comes to things like colors, design, aesthetic, and feel, and all those kinds of things, this is where this comes in, okay? So a person who's between the ages of 25 to 34 has a completely different attention span to somebody who's between the ages of 50 to 60, say, for example. If you're targeting Gen Z, that's even worse, okay, in a good way. Gen Z has a very, very short attention span, and they use TikTok and so on. So their attention span is far less than somebody between the ages of 25 to 34 even. Okay, so there's all sorts of little nuances that we need to be aware of, and that's why we use customer profiles, okay, in a really basic way. Now, we're far more, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to the content creation process we undergo, we're usually far more obviously strategic, but just at a very high level. If one thing that I could ask that you take away from this is just that you don't want to create for everybody, you want to create for a group of people based on a certain set of circumstances. Okay, try saying that 5 times fast. All right, so a certain set of circumstances, that's what you're doing when you're creating content, regardless of the context of who you're speaking to. Okay, another thing to do when it comes to those customers is to consider what we call the marketing funnel, the content marketing funnel. If you've ever done a start your own business course, a marketing course, if you've ever done a college course in commerce, etc., you may be aware of the sales funnel, right? And it doesn't matter, again, what organizational context you have. People are going to engage with you based on their awareness of a particular issue that they're having, okay? Be it that they need to apply for a grant, okay? To those of you in the County Council who have to work with them, you know probably how much is involved there. Or they're coming in to buy a product from your giftware store for Christmas, right? There's going to be different stages of awareness as to what grants are available, and then the process for application, and then finally the final, obviously, application and the evaluations committee and so on. So there's all different things happening that a person will need to be aware of. Likewise with a business, there's going to be, if this giftware business was, again, a real one, and there's going to be different things happening. At the top of the funnel, a person is going to be, or at the very start of our kind of interaction with a person, the person's going to be aware that they need to buy Christmas presents. So they're going to be looking, maybe doing a Google search, maybe going on social media passively and just browsing in the evening, seeing a special offer. We need to bring a hook to bring them in and so on. So there's lots of different things going on, which is essentially what I'm saying here. And the ultimate thing to remember is, if again you don't take anything else away from the workshop today, which hopefully it will, at the end of each screen, so at the end of every device that a person is using, i.e. one of these devices, there's a real human with needs, wants, and desires. Can you plan for every single person? No, of course not. But using your customer profile or your personal profile, your avatar, whatever word you want to use, you can try and think about how those types of customers will interact with you, again, regardless of the context that you're in. So consider where that user is at the time that they're going to be consuming the content we're going to be hopefully creating today. Because context will be everything. At the top of the funnel, is it a Google search about a specific problem that they're having? At the middle of the funnel, are they comparing different options in terms of pricing, in terms of value, in terms of perceived value, in terms of whether it's worth going for that grant or not, those kinds of things, right? And then bottom of funnel, this is where they take an action that we want them to take. So it could be something as simple as liking your Facebook page, or you're following your Instagram account, or obviously something more commercially driven, such as a purchase. Even an email subscription could be somewhat commercial, okay? That's a conversion, that's bottom of funnel. So at each stage, there's different things going on in the mindset of the customer. And I know person in their right mind, when they're out shopping or when they're browsing on the web, is thinking like this. They're not saying, I'm at the top of the funnel now and I'm going to the middle of the funnel and then I'm going to the bottom of the funnel. They're just doing this subconsciously. Okay, so that we all do this when we're looking for products and services we want to buy, particularly for more expensive products and services, right? I think it's fair to say. You don't just wander, unless you're of means, into a car dealership and say, I want the latest Toyota car, for example. I'm not singling out Toyota there for any reason. Or I want the latest Ford car, the most expensive one. You generally go in and you make a purchase decision, right? Based on different factors, based on obviously your own affordability of the product, based on what it gives you, based on the different factors that are influencing the purchase, be it, you know, green loans that may be available to you if you're purchasing a environmentally friendly car, etc. So there's lots of different things at play here, and that's basically what we're saying here, is that the human being, the other end of the screen, has loads of different other things going on. They're only going to be at a specific stage with you when it comes to, you know, consuming your content. So bear that in mind. Okay, you don't need a master's in psychology. You don't need a master's in marketing to kind of be aware of this, right, in a really fundamental way. Now, I know this isn't Canva, right? But I just want you to be aware of how people think, okay? Because I absolutely guarantee you that on social media in particular, you are up against big brands who do this, who know this on a daily basis, right? So big brands, big businesses, you're competing on social media for people's attention. You're also competing against personal profiles, against individual accounts for a person's attention. That's what social media in particular is all about. Now, I am not a psychologist, nor will I claim to be one. I am good at marketing. I will say that. I am qualified to do marketing. So when it comes to my understanding of psychology, particularly customer psychology, of course, it's going to be a little bit limited. But one thing I do know from my limited knowledge is that when it comes to design and when it comes to how you tell a story, color, font, typeface, all of that is important. So also bear that in mind, okay? These slides are yours after the call today, so don't be worried. You can get a copy of this, but you can see here how different brands use different colors. They plan every single aspect of their marketing, okay? Big brands have hundreds of millions, if not billions of euro to spend on marketing. We all know that, okay? But each brand has chosen a specific color, has chosen a specific social media channel, has chosen a specific way to communicate with people on that specific social media channel, following these principles. Okay, so here's a nice little breakdown of, thanks to Praxent, the some big brands and why they would choose specific colors. Likewise, here's a chart telling us what kind of feelings go with colors. You'll probably note that the main one that most corporations are using match in with kind of the customer idea of the customer, of who they're targeting. So the likes of blue would be a lot of investment banks, etc. Red would be more active, maybe outdoors companies to some degree. The black or darker branding would be maybe in luxury brands and so on. So there's lots of different ways we can think about color psychology as well when it comes to design. I am not qualified to talk to you about that. Okay, I'm not going to pretend to be qualified to talk to you about color psychology in any way, other than to say keep it in mind. Okay, keep all of these things in mind. So I promised you it would be 10 minutes. All right, we're going to get into the most important thing, what we're here to learn about, which is Canva. So if you can bear with me for just 2 seconds, I'm going to load up the correct Canva account and make sure that we're ready to get started. Okay. So luckily, I'm using a dual screen setup today, so this should not be an issue in any way, shape, or form. But just in case it is, which it's not, here we go. We have liftoff. So Canva, how do you access it in a really basic way? Well, all you need to do is go to your browser and type in canva.com, and you will be brought straight to where you need to go to. You'll be directed to the correct language that you should be accessing it in. Okay, if you're accessing it from France, it would be in French. If you're accessing from Germany, it would be in German. But today we're accessing it in Ireland, obviously, so it's going to be in English. All right. So you can see here that the Canva homepage is absolutely plastered with lots of different things telling you just how great the software is. Okay, I'm not going to do any of this, right, because it isn't the software. I'm going to go straight into the process of getting you signed up, and I'm going to sign up first for a free account. So I'm going to show you this from the get-go. It's really easy. Now, just prior to this call, I set up a new Gmail account here. So I'm going to be using a Gmail account to do this. Okay, but you're not limited to a Gmail account. You can sign up with Google. Obviously, that's what I'm going to be doing now, with Facebook, email, or even other interfaces such as Microsoft or mobile as well, or even Apple. Yeah, I'm on an Apple device, so that's probably why that's popping up there. Okay, so what I'm going to do when I want to sign up, if you've never done this before, this is for you. This is where you're going to click the link up the top right of the screen here. And I'm going to slow down because there is a tiny bit of lag here, and apologies for that. In the replay, it'll be absolutely seamless, but just there is a tiny bit of lag. So up the top right here of the screen, you'll see the sign up button. And what you want to do when you obviously want to set up your account is you want to hit sign up. Okay, and once you hit sign up, you'll choose the option that is relevant to you. I'm going to choose continue with Google because I can just easily sign in with my Google account. Okay, as you can see here, Canva for Business wex25@gmail.com. Okay, Google probably wouldn't like that, but there you go. I'm going to click that link. Okay, you're not going to see this because I haven't enabled that, so just bear with me 2 seconds here. Sorry about that, folks. It's my fault. I should be sharing the entire screen with you. Here we go. We'll get there eventually. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, you'll always manage to choose the wrong option. So there we go. So this is Canva for Business. Okay, here. This is the account I'm signing up with. Right, so it's going to ask me to continue, and then it will redirect me to my new account. Okay. So I'm now signed up technically for Canva here. So I'm going to begin the process of my account setup, and I'm going to choose the context that I'm working in. Okay, so I'm going to choose here small business. Okay. I'm going to choose what it is I'm going to be doing then with Canva. So marketing and advertising, okay, primarily, if I'm a business. If I'm a sole operator, I'm going to say it's only me. All right. If there's any more people, etc., you'll see you're able to invite them as a team. I recommend using paid account for that. We'll get more into that at a later stage today. But just for the time being, I'll stick with the basics here. And what I'm going to do is design. I'm going to choose here the next option: design, sales, and marketing collaterals. You can choose whatever is relevant to you. Okay. And I'm going to skip this for now. This is where it's going to ask me for Canva Pro, and I can sign up for free for 30 days, and it is worth trying. I promise you, if you're going to go heavy on Canva, you will use it. But just for the time being, I'm going to skip this. Okay. And then it's going to have a minor little celebration. It's going to set off a bit of confetti. Okay. And we're on our Canva dashboard. So this is Canva here, right? Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe you're not. Let me tell you, and let me be quite plain with you. Once you get to know the interface, it's quite simple. Okay. On the left-hand side of the screen here is essentially your context selector. So you can choose what kind of app interface you want to work from. All right. So things like the home page, projects, templates, and so on. To the right of that, you'll see the Canva logo, obviously, and a little window that's kind of like a context window. Okay, so this is where, depending on what tab you've opened here, okay, it will display the correct interface, okay, for that window. All right, just for now, I'm just letting you know that's how this is working. We'll get a bit more in depth in a moment. And then on the right-hand side here, you've got the main canvas window, right, which is where most of what you want from here is going to live, okay? So most of you want to probably know, how do I start with things such as designs and so on and so forth? Well, you'll be happy to know that Canva has hundreds of thousands of templates for you to use, quite literally. And they have them for nearly every single context you can think of. There hasn't been something that I haven't found so far to be useful on Canva when it comes to templates. But before I do that, if at any point you need to change the settings of your accounts, I'm just going to mention this very briefly. What to do is to just simply, hit the little settings wheel up here. Okay, it's the cog wheel there, and you will be brought to your settings window. So if at any point you need to change something in relation to your account, your email address, and so on, you can do so here. Okay. If you need to adjust the accessibility in terms of things like high color contrast, etc., something I don't usually mention, but I should, this is where to find that as well. Okay, so high color contrast. Yeah, but for the time being, we're just going to go back to the home page and start from scratch. So what do each of the menu items on the left-hand side here mean? So hopefully you can see my mouse there. You can see the little hand pointing to the home icon. This is essentially the home page, right? This is where you're going to start with your account from. All right. And here you'll see the latest designs that you'll have created, various different favorites, various different folders, etc. Okay. So again, at a very basic level, the home page is basically your starting point. Yeah. The next thing then, the next one under that is projects. Okay. Hopefully you'll see my mouse change there in a second. So projects there. Projects is essentially an organizational structure of where either your latest projects are, or according to folders that you've set up, the latest projects are stored. Okay, so imagine like the folder system, excuse me, on your computer, which I'm sure you all have, right? You have a way of structuring things to bring order to the chaos. Just a word of advice in advance: my Canva system can be a little bit chaotic sometimes, if you can't tell. Okay, so when you see that later on, don't be frightened. But you can be, unlike me, organized to as much detail as you want. You can add things like folders and subfolders and all sorts of things so that you can structure it in whatever way that you want to. And it is great to do that. Okay, it's absolutely fantastic if you do that. And projects is where you can do that from. Okay. Templates then. Templates will give you will give you the ability to explore basically the template library. Okay. And you don't need to create a design to get into the template library to see just how vast it is. Okay. You can also see things like work kits, which would be branding and so on. You would need to set these up with brand kits and so on. You need a premium account for some of that. Photos, icons, and so on. Okay. All of these things are accessible in the actual designer itself. But templates just gives you an idea as to, how much content you have access to. And you've got publicly created designs and also Canva created designs here as well. Something to bear in mind. Okay. The next option is brand. And I'll only just briefly tell you what it is for now so that you're aware. This is where, if you're, for example, a marketer, or you're an organization that has different brands. For example, let's just say for argument's sake, you were Wexford County Council and you had the local enterprise office, you had the finance department, you had the marketing department, you had and so on, right? I'm probably simplifying it too much there. This is where you could set up different branding for each of the departments within that. Likewise, if you're a business and maybe you have, maybe you're a restaurateur and you've got multiple locations, etc., each with slightly different branding. This is where you can set up brand kits for each of the locations. And what you do with brand kits is you essentially store things like logos, fonts, colors. So very useful in the context of needing to manage things like branding and so on to make it consistent. Again, I'll show it to you later on, okay? The next thing then is apps. Now, apps is fantastic, right? But you usually use apps where you find that the creative tools within the context of the creation of content of Canva itself don't offer you the level of control you need. And where it really kind of, I suppose, flourishes is in things like AI and text. Okay, so with AI tools, you can do certain things that otherwise you wouldn't normally be able to do. Okay, so things like image generation in certain contexts, right, outside of the Dream Lab, which I'll go into in a second, talking head designs and so on. That's their AI tools. Now, what are talking heads? They're essentially moving photos, right, that sync a voice and that create a voice through a person or through a non-existent person, essentially, right? Just so you're aware. The other thing then is text-based, text-based tools. So I don't know where they're gone here, but they were there a second ago. But certainly with things like the text-based tools, you can, Design Essentials should be in there, you can do things like text warps or text extrude and gradients and so on. Okay, so they make the creation process a little easier, okay, than having to go in and blend things yourself and create layers and so on. The other things that you can do within the apps of Canva itself is you can actually connect your software to different digital tools you use as well. So things like LinkedIn, Instagram, X, don't know why it says Twitter here, but X, Google Ads, but even MailChimp and so on. You can connect your tools across so you can bring in your designs seamlessly, okay? And likewise, you can also publish to the various different social media channels from your Canva account as well. So it is useful to know that, okay? The last option on the left-hand side then here, in the very left-hand side, I should say, is Dream Lab. Now, this is where AI starts to come to bear, right? And I'm going to do this very quickly with you so you can see what I'm talking about when it comes to the image creation not being maybe as good as you would want it to be for human beings. But certainly for things like landscapes, artwork, and so on, it ain't bad, right? It ain't bad, as you can see here. And these are real designs that people have created. So what I'm going to do is just show you what Dream Lab is in context. So I'm going to say a person standing in Wexford town, getting a coffee. Okay, so what Dream Labs is essentially an AI tool that allows you to create content that perhaps you need that's very unique, or that you need that's very much specific to, okay, it's not too bad. It's very unique to you, okay? So you can see here this is what we mean. So it's created an image, okay? That's kind of scary. It's actually kind of good. Now we can see here that things are starting to get a little bit too scary. So her eyes there are slightly pointed inwards, okay? He doesn't look too bad at all. He's got 5 fingers, which is a good start. Sometimes they create 6 fingers when we do this, right? I will get more professional in a moment, I promise. Okay, so you can have a bit of fun with it. Okay, if you're ever bored, you can have a bit of fun with it at the very least. But what this will allow you to do is, particularly for things like graphics and brand and vector icons and things, if there's a very specific thing you need, you can use the Dream Lab to create it. Okay, and you can actually select the style and things like that when it comes to it. Okay, so things like a vector here, you can create a piece of vector art. That is basically line art that's colored and it looks like vector art. So I'll show you this now in a second. There we go. So it's not too bad, right? It actually isn't too bad in this case. And that's where I find Magic Lab to be the strongest, okay? So that is this menu here on the left-hand side, right? So again, we have home, projects, templates, apps, and Dream Lab. So you're not confused, you're not saying, just what's all this? Okay. The next thing that you probably want to know about and that we probably need to focus on is the content creation process itself, right? And how you create content. And there are multiple ways that you can start that process. The most obvious one, you're going to say to me, Philip, I know it is. It's the big purple bluish button there on the left, and you're absolutely right. It is. You can simply hit the create a design button if you want to get started, as most people want to do, and that's absolutely fine. With Canva, as I've said before, you can create any types of content you want for any type of purpose. So when you do hit that create a design button, you're going to be brought to this lovely window here. And this is where you can choose from any kind of preset content types you need, maybe documents, whiteboards. Whiteboards are typically shared whiteboards for business calls, etc. Presentations, obvious. Social media, obvious. Videos, obvious. Print products, websites, and even more. Okay, so you can get various different pre-sized templates for your usage. Okay, so if I were a social media content creator, what I would do is I would think, right, based on the profile that I have and based on the context, I want to create a top of funnel post for Instagram. So I'm going to need to navigate to social media here and Instagram post 4 to 5. Those of you who don't know, and to those of you who perhaps need to know this, the Instagram grid has changed from a square, right, to a kind of a more rectangular shape, 4 to 5 ratio. Okay, so it's longer than it is. Its length is more than its width, basically. Okay, something to know. It's kind of a sub note there. But when we do that, right, when we want to create something, we're just simply looking for the correct sizing, okay, of our document. I'm not going to choose any kind of templates as of yet. I'm going to go into the actual blank window that comes up in a second and do that. But basically what I would do is I would navigate to where I want within the create a design window here, having hit that button on the outside and select the one I want. Or, right, likewise, I could also type in the word Instagram, okay? And it will also suggest different sizes or different content types to me. The one I want is this 4 to 5 ratio. Okay, so that sounds about right because that's the default grid size now. If you're not on it, you will be shortly. But you can also see the other different types of content here, excuse me, depending on what you want to create. So things like a video, a profile picture, a reel, okay, a story, an Instagram story video. And depending on the type of content you choose here, if you were to choose, for example, video, which I'm not going to do just yet, confuse everybody completely, the way that the creation screen would load would look slightly different. And I'm going to go through that in a little while. But for the time being, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this Instagram post here, okay, this 4 to 5. And you can see here that the sizing is predetermined already for me. So 1080 by 1350 pixels, right? So the sizing is already correct for me. When I click that, which I've just done, I'm going to be brought to the next window, which is essentially the content creation window. And this is where it starts to get a little bit more complicated, but it starts to do exactly what we're in Canva to do, which is create stuff, okay? The first thing that you may be tempted to do is to use a template, okay, to get started. And if you are suffering from writer's block, I obviously highly recommend it. No problem at all. Okay, there are, as I've said, thousands of templates to choose from, regardless of what type of content you are creating. In this case, what you will get is templates that are recommended for this type of document, so Instagram itself. So you can see here there is. Sorry, I'm trying to browse in the window in the video window here. In this window here, you've got already suggested templates. Okay. So you can see here there's suggested templates. Actually look really good. The one thing to know, right, is that some of them are free and some of them are premium. Okay, so this is where the limitations of Canva start to play out now. To identify the free from the premium, you may be able to see this already. You may be familiar with this already. See that little crown icon down there, down the bottom right of an image? That usually indicates that the item is available only to premium users. Okay, or that the elements within it are premium in some way. So you'd probably find that the images within here are licensed for premium only. Okay, so you're not going to be able to apply those designs. However, rest assured, there are free ones here, and we can already see them here. So depending on the type of content you want to create, maybe you want to create a text-based post, an image-based post, a grid-based post, you'll probably find what you're looking for. Okay, if you can't, Use your words. Okay. So what I'm going to type in here is, excuse me, I know, actually, no, Mother's Day is coming up. So I'm going to type in Mother's Day. I was going to type in Valentine's Day, but I'll type in Mother's Day. It's the 31st of March, I think. Isn't it? Yeah. So Mother's Day, I'm going to type in Mother's Day here. And I'm doing this because we own that giftware store I mentioned at the start of this. And as you can see, because I've typed in the keyword Mother's Day, it's suggested a number of different templates to me. Okay, things like a mother's love. And on the left-hand side here, they're organized by free versus premium. Okay, so that's kind of useful. Now, the more you scroll down, the more kind of mixed up and more jumbled they get. But what I found is when I do that, usually the first 3 or 4 tend to be free, and then they kind of get jumbled up after that. Okay, so as a giftware store, what I might be looking to do is showcase some products, or just wish somebody a happy Mother's Day, or just promote for the top of funnel that Mother's Day is coming up. So what I would do is I would say, right, this looks pretty good. Or actually, no, I prefer this kind of pink one here, because I maybe could turn this into International Women's Day for the 8th of March first. I think it's the 8th of March. Hope it is. And maybe that's a more appropriate one. Okay, so I can pick and choose what template I want. So I'm going to choose maybe the second one here. Okay, this pink one. I click it, right? And then what will happen is it will appear in the window on the right-hand side here. Okay, so we now have our template essentially preloaded, okay, ready to edit in a way on the right-hand side here. Yeah. Perhaps what I want to do is add in another page to this, okay, or add in another piece of content on top of this. And I can do that just by simply hitting the Add Page button down here. So this then starts to turn into a carousel. Okay, so this is going to be a carousel post. And what's a carousel post? Again, for those of you who aren't familiar, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, and you're scrolling across, swiping across on an individual post, that's a carousel. Where are they useful? Things like infographics, tutorials, and so on. I'm sure that many of you, regardless of where you're coming from, will find that kind of content useful, right? Or so that creation ability useful. So again, that's how you get this kind of started here. So once you've hit that button, and once you've hit that design, and once you've started to add in new pages, you can see here that our window changes slightly, right? Our context menu is gone here on the left, and we're left with, and we only have kind of the screen here, and then the page here. So what I'm going to do now, right, is having loaded this, I'm going to walk you through each element of the screen, if you'll bear with me for a few minutes. Again, some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may not. So just either take a step back for a second and make yourself a tea, or tune in and pay attention, because this is very important. Okay. So when you create a new design, and when you apply your design, essentially, you are in a new window here to what you were in on the home page when we got started. Okay, and you can see that from the fact that on the left-hand side here, the menu has changed slightly. Okay, the menu now has new options in it, and they're contextual to what's here. Okay, to what's in this window here, and this is the creation window. Okay, you can also go back out to the area that you were in, essentially, by clicking, excuse me, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, by clicking the open menu button up the very top of the screen. And I'm going to start working across now, so you're aware what each of these things mean. So when you click that, you can go back out, in essence, to the other options that exist here. Now, it used to be more complicated than this. You used to have to exit, and it was a bit messy. So it's a lot simpler now. So you can just simply click back to projects if needs be. Okay, and if I do that, right, I'm going to say, oh no, I lost my design. My cool template I liked, I'll never be able to get it back. Well, yeah, you can, because it's all cloud-based. And you can see here that it exists in the untitled design here. Now, sometimes this should be updated. So what I'm going to do is just refresh the screen, and you should see the actual design itself. Oh, strange. Okay, what you would usually be able to see is the design itself. So perhaps it's my internet, or I'm missing something here. But this is the design I was just working on. Okay. So I'm able to click back into it. If I did click that by accident, etc., I can just simply click back into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by walking across the top menu bar here. Okay. So the first option you see here is File, much like Microsoft Word, or at least the old version of Microsoft Word. Okay, where you have File, and there's numerous different, again, options that you can choose from. Create a new design is obvious. Okay, that's where you're literally starting from scratch with a new template. Okay. Then we have upload files, the ability to upload files from your computer or from another section on the web. So things like Google Drive, Dropbox, you can connect all of those resources to Canva. Okay. Settings, this is where you can do a little bit more to help you, particularly if you're in print media. You can do things like margins and print bleed so that you can ensure that your window is set up correctly. Okay, so margins and print bleed there, as we can see. Okay, so if you're doing things like menus or printing collateral, leaflets, and so on, you can set those up there. Okay. You can also, which I don't usually do, full disclosure, you can also add guides, okay, for your designs. I don't usually do this, full disclosure, and I really should. I usually go with grids and things like that, but you can use guides and so on to help you, space your content and create kind of an even structure to it. Okay, so for the designers in the group, again, please don't be insulted by my limited knowledge of that. The next option, excuse me, then is accessibility. So if there's certain things you need to do to ensure that the design is kind of universally accessible and that there's a good level of accessibility to it, you can actually do that from Canva. It's pretty good at this. So this is particularly good for content so that it meets WCAG guidelines. I think I have that acronym correct. So if you do need to check things like color contrast and so on, there's going to be a helpful design accessibility section to that. So I know some of you, particularly those in Wexford County Council, that may be a useful tool for some of the things you need to produce. I know they need to have a certain standard, etc. Okay. Next up is the kind of folder systems and file management. Okay, so from here, what you can do is when you're in this file menu, you can save. It's obviously going to save continually, so I wouldn't really need to click this. I've to be honest with you, never click this ever when I'm working with a design. It's only when I'm doing these tutorials and I'm showing it. This is just where you can click save from, and that just saves it to the cloud. Okay, if you're having difficulty or there's a connection problem, usually a little message will come up saying that there's a connection problem. Okay, you can also move your design to a specific folder from here. We'll go through folders later on. You can make a copy. This is really useful for resizing and so on. You can only resize documents if you've got a premium account, though. That's one of the limitations. The download function is also available here. This is where you can download your design from. We'll bring up the download window. Okay, so again, something I'm going to be showing you in a few minutes. Your version history, unfortunately, is only available for premium accounts. If you, as I said, have quite a heavy workload, it is worth investing in the premium account, even purely for this. So if you have previous versions of documents you need to go back on and so on, you can access them via your version history. You can move the document to trash if you wish, or you can even find and replace text and open it in the Canva desktop app. Okay, so some really cool, really simple things to get started with our file window in here. The next thing you may also want to do is give your design a new name. So that's what I'm going to do here now. I'm going to actually do something with this window and call it Mother's Day Promotion. Okay. So when I change it here, it changes over here on the right as well. So you can see where my mouse is now on your screen while you're watching this Mother's Day Promotion. Okay. So the next thing and the next window then is resize. This is only available for premium accounts, and I will show you this later on. It's a really quick way to basically create content for different formats. So an example, a practical example is, it would be, I'm not going to say a pain, but it would certainly be time consuming if you needed to just translate this graphic and bring it over from an Instagram post to an Instagram story. Okay, it's a slightly larger window. So what this allows you to do is to resize the document, or at least it will automatically resize the document based on the selection you make. So you could resize it into, say, an Instagram story, for example. Okay, and it will copy the document. You have the option to either resize the document natively here or to copy it to a new one. I usually copy it to a new one, and then it's available in the new copy that's created. Okay, and it will copy everything and resize everything as best it can so that it fits the new window. Doesn't always get it perfect. Okay, I will say there's still sometimes a bit of manual drag and drop needed, as you'll see when we're creating something in a few minutes, but it is a useful tool nonetheless. Okay, so again, if you're investing in Canva, you know, to produce social media content on a regular basis, and it's a part of your, as I say, work, it can be worth looking at that. The editing, look, again, this is only really for where you're working as a team and so on. This allows you to leave comments and things on a design. This, if you were to share access to a particular user or to particular people within a team, etc., to a design, they can leave comments and things. It is something that we do use internally here, or if I'm working with an external organization on their social media, generally we will give access to Canva through something like the share function, which I'll be going through in a second. And then this is where you'll choose what you want to, where this will come in, where you want to change or look at what you're looking at. Okay. So again, just useful to know. The next thing then is the undo and redo functions. This is self-explanatory, right? Let's say I have a disaster day and I'm having the worst day in my life and I'm deleting things right by accident. I'm pressing the back button and I shouldn't have been. I should have been pressing something else, because we all do it. I do it. Even though I'm doing this on a daily basis, I have those days where I look at something and I move something and I resize something and then it's all over the place. I'm saying, oh, I'm in chaos. As you can see, my head is in chaos now. So I need to calm down and I need to say there's always an option to undo my mistakes. And that's where this little lovely button comes in. We can undo our mistakes very easily using this, right? Let's say I was happy enough to take out the background stamp there, okay? I could also redo my mistake, okay? So again, undo and redo, yeah? Then the next little icon here means that our changes have been saved. So this indicates to me that the changes I've made, right, have been saved. So we can undo the changes. Yeah. So again, it's saving constantly. To the right of this is, again, another space where you can change the document name. Okay, so I may want to change this to Mother's Day Promotion, Pink Armchair, Pink Nursing Chair, maybe. Okay. So again, Mother's Day Promotion, Pink Nursing Chair. I try to give detailed names wherever I can. But again, this will save into the cloud. And then when you exit the document, I'm going to do that again, okay, just so you see it. Hopefully it'll save it. I'll just refresh. Yeah, Mother's Day, pink nursing chair. Okay, it's just my internet is a little slow, so that's the reason it didn't update straight away. Okay, so now I'm back into that design. Yeah, so it's saved constantly by the cloud. I have a lovely little upsell here from Canva, which I can ignore for the time being. I can also delegate access to others. Okay, I can also share access to this Canva design with others. Okay, now what I will say is that the person that you're inviting will have access to this from their own account. Okay, so it's not a Teams-based account. This is where they have access from their own account. So they'll be invited to, usually, I think, haven't done it in a little while, make a copy of the document. So I would share this to my email address here. Okay, so that my Canva account on philip@titandigital.ie can access it and change it as needed. Okay, so this is where I can also denote permissions. So what I would usually do is, if it's a client or a stakeholder in the organization I'm working with, I would choose comment, because I don't want them going in and mucking something up. What then happens is, no offense intended to the people that I do that to, what I then do is I will get an email, or I would receive an email from Canva themselves, you see it here, hopefully, inviting me to collaborate on this design. Okay, so that's on my own Canva account. I can also remove the person. So again, they're no longer able to access this. Okay. We also have to the right of that some analytics data. So if you do share this design through the means I've just shown you, or through a publicly accessible URL, through the share button, which you'll see in a second, you can view analytics for this. Again, the thing is that you need a premium account. So wherever you see that lovely crown, you can get some. You're going to need, as I say, the premium version. This is only useful if you're tracking analytics for a particular reason. Have I used it? No, I haven't. Okay, even with a premium account, I don't tend to use that. I tend to stick with Teams and things like that for our premium and the resizing and all those kinds of tools. Nothing when it comes to analytics. So the last button on the top bar here is the share button. Okay, and the share button gives you more, I suppose, that you can do when it comes to what you want to do with this particular document. Okay, not just this one-page design, but this document. So again, just as before, I can invite people, okay, to collaborate with me. Okay, I can also invite people with a link to collaborate. Yeah, and I can copy that link. But then underneath that, excuse me, is really what you're going to be concerned with, which is probably the download function. Once again, outside of the file menu there, the download function. Okay, when you hit the download button here, or when you hit it in the file menu, you're going to be brought to this screen. Okay, this nice little option here, this nice little option screen. And from here, you can select various different file types. Okay, and I'll explain some of them to you just so you're aware. This is more nerdy stuff, maybe that, you know, you would say you don't need to need, but it is useful to know. Okay, and I'll explain them in a second if you just bear with me, if it lets me get out of that. You can also do things like resize the document, again, only available for premium accounts. Various other options here only available for premium accounts, limiting file sizes, transparent backgrounds, etc. You can also select what pages you want to download. So let's say, for example, you had one page that was a video and one page that was had video elements or animated elements. Again, be explaining that a bit later. And one page that was just a simple graphic that did nothing, right? You could download them separately. That's where that selection comes in. Okay, you have the ability to select your pages, just your current page, or individual pages via the checkboxes here. Okay, so really simple stuff, right? Nothing too complicated. However, as I said, where it may get a little bit more complicated is in terms of the file type. Okay, and this, as I said, is not something that most people want to know about, but I think it is important so you know what each file type is for. When you are saving a document, if you're uploading it to your website, if you're uploading it to social media, you want to do it in a high quality way, right? So PNG or JPEG are the way to do that if it's a picture file. Okay, the key difference between a PNG and a JPEG is that a PNG is best for graphics. So I would save this perhaps as a PNG if I were uploading it to social media. It stands for portable network graphics. Nothing you need to be concerned with. The file size is going to be quite large. Okay, if you were to save a photograph, okay, that you had uploaded as a PNG, you would find that the file size is quite large as well, a couple of megabytes. Okay, a JPEG, on the other hand, a JPEG is for photographs. Okay, and it's best for websites, it's best for sharing on social media, etc. And the higher quality the photo that you want, the more space you're going to use. So JPEG does a bit of compression for you versus a PNG if you're sharing photographs. So it's something to be aware of. Where Canva Premium comes into it, and I'm afraid to say this, is you can denote the quality that you want to save it as. So you could reduce quality by 50%, for example, if your file was too large. Okay, or sorry, you could ensure the quality is a minimum 50% if the file was too large. Generally speaking, I save, when I'm saving for web, when I'm saving for documents, anything between 70 and 90, right? Again, then excuse me for saying this, the nerdy amongst you will know what I'm talking about here. Those of you who need to know this will probably know this already, but you may not have known you could do this in Canva. But outside of that, you know, is that important? Not really. Okay, if you're just doing this for print media and so on, you obviously can save it, or for social media sharing, you can usually save it PNG for graphic or JPEG for photographs. Okay, that's where I would say your kind of area would stop. If you're a web designer, if you're uploading content to the website, to your P-tools, etc., or whatever systems you're using, you would generate your WordPress, you'd want to have an optimized image that isn't too large, so you would reduce the size quality, and that's where that kind of extra bit of knowledge comes in. The other types of content in here are PDF standard and PDF print. This allows you to create PDF documents, okay? And you can kind of guess here from the advice that comes underneath. The PDF standard is best for documents that maybe display on the web or maybe display via email. and they're generally compressed more than they would be if they were selected as PDF print. Okay, so again, PDF standard and PDF print. The key difference in each context is that this crop marks and bleed comes up as an option. So it will put in the crop marks, the little corner squares, the little corner lines, I should say, etc. So that when it goes to printer, you know, they know where to align things and so on. I'm not a printer, so I'm kind of just winging it here, to be honest with you. I'm guessing that's what it's used for, okay? So we then also have multimedia, different forms of multimedia. MP4 being one, okay? I'll explain SVG in a second, but MP4 being one if you were creating a video, okay? GIF or GIF, there's a debate on how that's pronounced. I've always heard it pronounced as GIF. Some people say GIF. Don't know why. It's GIF, but anyway. So this allows you to create short animations. Okay. I only really ever use MP4 videos. I don't create GIFs unless I'm creating like a meme or something like that with this. That's not going to be relevant to anybody here, really. And then PowerPoint. If you're creating a presentation, you can save them as a PowerPoint. Generally, what I do, much like today's webinar, is I save them as a PDF, okay, if I'm creating a presentation. If I have animations, etc., they may not transfer to PowerPoint, so just bear that in mind, okay? So it's one of the limitations. The other thing that you can do in this lovely share window is you can actually present as well, okay? So you can use Canva as a presenter, okay? And I can tell you from experience that it's quite good. Okay, I used it the other day for an AI workshop in a private company. So much like this, it was all set up in Canva, and I ran it extremely successfully. Okay, so again, that's available via the share function there. Okay, you can also do things like present and record. You can publish to social media platforms if you want. Okay, you can publish them out, and indeed, you can actually do a lot more. Okay, you can see here, you can do things like save it to Drive, save it to Dropbox, OneDrive, publish it on WhatsApp. Like there's so much you can do. Okay, you can also, if you're a small business, actually choose to print with Canva. Now, I'm not going to try and upsell their printing services to you. There's probably cheaper ones out there, local ones that you can get. Did I see a printer here? I'm not sure. I can't remember, but certainly, if you need to get something printed, Canva do offer the alternative. But I recommend that you shop local there, if at all possible, okay? It's generally better to support local businesses and so on in that context. So the share button gives us access to a lot of things, a lot of different tools that perhaps were outside of what you knew Canva could do. You knew it could create graphics, but you didn't know it could act as a presenter for presentations. You didn't know that it could act as a social media publisher. You probably didn't know that you could get feedback on design. So that's what that is going to allow you to do. Okay. So that is the top bar, right, in itself. I know it seems like a lot, or it seems like we spent a lot of time on it, but now you have a good understanding as to how you can kind of manage your workflow maybe a little bit better, how you can access quick features so that you can do things maybe that you couldn't do previously. Back to our design, okay? On the left-hand side here, and before I get into the content creation piece, bear with me on that, I promise you we will be doing it. I'm just going to explain what each of these windows mean, and then I'm going to jump into our break, if I may, at about 11:15 for 15 minutes. On the left-hand side here is the menu for the changes that you want to make to the design here, okay? The overall design. And I'm going to take that ruler out because it's very distracting. Sorry. I know some people like rulers, but I'm going to stick without them. So on the left-hand side here, you have menus for what you're going to change in your specific page that you're on, or your specific element that you're on, okay? Design is where templates live. And if you wanted to, you could add another design to your page. So you could add another Mother's Day design to your page here. Right? Sorry, I'm going to jump in there. So you can simply just search for a keyword, Mother's Day again, hit perhaps this one here, Mother's Love, which is a free one, okay? And it will apply it to the second page, okay? So again, we have our first design and our second design. All I need to do is just add a new page and then search for the keyword that I want. So for example, I might then type in summer if I'm just going with seasons. Okay, summer sale, for example, right? It's actually a really nice design there. Yep. so I can apply as many designs as I need. Yeah. The next option down then is elements. And these are basically individual content elements, things like graphics, photos, videos, frames. Again, something I'll show you when we're actually creating something after our break. This is basically everything you could possibly need, you know, under the sun for your content. The key thing again to know here is that some of it is going to be free, some of it is going to be paid. Canva per month for a professional account for an individual is €13, and you get access to an unbelievable amount of resources for €13. And the best part is it's commercially licensed. Okay, so you can use the various different elements in a commercial context because you're paying the €13 per month to access that ability. Okay. So for example, you can see here that we have things like shapes, graphics, stickers, and so on, but I can search this element. I can search for different elements if I want. And again, I can type in things like Mother's Day if I wanted. Okay. And it will give me different things for Mother's Day, different graphics, different photos, different videos, even audio. A lot of this audio, I think most of this audio, I think all of this audio, I should say, is usually premium. Yeah, looks like it is premium. So maybe I just type in pop. Okay, yeah, it's all premium. To the best of my knowledge, there was a time when there were free tracks. Oh, look, there's one free track there. But there was a time when there was a lot more free tracks than there is now. But it's mostly premium, unfortunately, just so you're aware. Likewise with videos, a lot of the videos, the good videos would be premium now. Okay, just something to be aware of. When it comes to the free version, though, you know, by no means is it limited. There's still a lot of options for you if you're looking for something, right? So again, that is elements. So with these elements, what you will do is you will choose the one that's applicable for you. So for example, I'm just going to type in Mother's Day again. Perhaps what I want to do is add a graphic to this screen. So what I would do is I would just go into the graphic. Okay, I would select the graphic I want, a free graphic in this case, for example, this bouquet of flowers, maybe. I would click it and it would add it to the design. Okay, and then I can manipulate that design, something again we'll be doing. Maybe what I want to do is take out that rose. I'm adding this bouquet, this lovely bouquet instead. Okay, and resize it. So you can play around with it, okay, as per your needs. Yeah, all you're doing is just simply going in to the element that you want, clicking it, okay, and then manipulating it in the canvas here, in the content creation screen. Hopefully you can see that kind of moving around slowly. Okay, so nice and simple. The next thing is text. And again, text is kind of self-explanatory. This is where you're going to simply add in new elements of text into a design. Okay, so for example, I can simply start by adding in a text box, and that will give me a text box on my page. Okay, that again, I can drag around or do whatever I need to. Excuse me. And then I can simply type in what I want. So for example, new Mother's Day gifts in stock, right? So again, I'm not going into any insane detail on this screen just yet, but just know that if I'm adding text, that's a quick way to do it here, add a text box. You can also use Magic Write. What is Magic Write? Well, it's basically a bit of ChatGPT, okay? So you can type in what you want to see using Magic Write. If you have a premium account, you'll have more credits. But I might say, for example, a Mother's Day poem. I'll hit generate, and it will generate the poem for me. Okay, and we can then insert that, and it's available there for me to do what I need to so that it's visible. Okay, it's a bit of ChatGPT. I'm not actually sure which engine they're using. Maybe somebody does know that answer to that question, and I probably should. I'm not sure if it's their own ML machine learning, but it would be useful to know. You can also obviously do this outside in other software. I know some of you are using Office 365, and you might have access to Copilot, and you can do it in Copilot and bring it in. So again, you don't need to use this per se. Okay, you can also add in branding fonts as well through the brand kit. Again, a premium feature. So if you use a particular typeface, if your business has access to a particular typeface, particular type of font, or uses a particular font in its menus. For example, if you're a restaurant and then you want to have that in your posters as well, you can add them in as brand fonts. You've got default text styles. Okay, this is where you can add in templates and things, but again, we'll get into that. Dynamic text, things such as page numbers that change per page. Okay, and then finally, font combinations. So you have a couple of different font templates that you can use. Okay, and you can just browse them based on what it is you want to do here. Okay, and find one that suits you. Perhaps again, maybe the pricing menu might be one that's relevant for certain types of businesses. The question as to whether you can add things like tables and charts and so on, yes, you can, and I will be doing that with you. Don't worry. Okay, so that's text. We then have the brand kit again. This is where we can select the brand kit we're using. So for different companies, you may, or different functions or organizational units and so on, you may have different logos and so on, and you can store them in here. Self-explanatory. You also have access to uploads. So you can actually upload documents yourself, or upload content, I should say, yourself from your own drive, from your own hard drive, or you can sync them from various different solutions like Google Drive, Dropbox, Google One Photos, and even OneDrive and so on. Okay, so well, at least OneDrive was available up to recently here. I'll go off and have a look at that on the break, because I know some people will be using Office, so it'll be good to know if they have removed that. So yeah, you can essentially, at the very least, upload from Dropbox, Google Photos, or Google Drive. Okay, and from here then you can access your stored media and drag it into your design. Okay, the next thing then is draw. This allows you to literally draw on the screen. Okay, I don't really need to detail that too much, apart from to say if you are a graphic designer where you are using, say, a pad or a stylus, etc. That's obviously very useful. If you want to do your own artwork and so on, you can do that from here. Okay, you can set the different types of nib, the different types of color, the different widths and stroke widths and so on. So yeah, that's what draw is for. Okay, do I use this? No, because I am not a graphic designer in that sense. We then have projects, and projects allows you to either import existing projects or to reorganize your stored documents in the way that you want. So you can create folders from within your projects window, and I'll be showing you how to do this after the break via the window. But this is where you can access projects quickly, bring them in into your current document, and so on. Okay, the last thing then is apps, and this again is where you're going to access more advanced things that you might want that maybe aren't available in the default kind of editors of Canva itself. So in the text editor, you may want something like stretchy font or something like that, right? As crazy as that sounds. So what you would do is you would look for what you want. So for example, Typecraft here is one that we would use sometimes. And you would type in something like Canva for business, give it a structure. Okay. And then give it a stretch. Okay. So you can do different things depending on what it is that you're looking for. Okay, now again, not going to be a graphic designer by any means here, but again, this is where apps come in. So you can see the usefulness there. Okay. So out of the box, Canva is not going to offer you that degree of flexibility when it comes to text-based manipulation. However, something like Typecraft will. Okay, and Typecraft is the app you're looking for there if you want to do text-based manipulation. Okay, so that is the basics of Canva when it comes to the menus, the home screen, the menus, and the different elements within the editor itself. When we come back, what we're going to look at is we're going to be looking at the actual content creation process itself, the windows and the various different things that come with that, some of the key advanced features of what's available, and things like the text bar here and the graphics bar and how to select different colors and so on. So bear with me on that. And afterwards, we're going to look at project management, maybe ways to organize and so on, just again very quickly, and go into some more advanced things like video creation and presentation creation. So thank you for bearing with me over the first hour and nearly 20 minutes. I will now start a countdown timer for the break, and we will come back in about 15 minutes time, if that's okay with everybody. All right, thank you very much. Yeah, so you're all very welcome back. I hope you had a nice break. I hope you weren't too overwhelmed in the first half. It certainly wasn't my intention if you were. At the end of this course, just to let you know, there will be a download made available to you in terms of a feedback form. If you wouldn't mind filling that in and sending it on to your contact. It's in Word doc, and I just did not get a chance, unfortunately, to do a poll out. So my apologies to all attendees here. Would have saved you time. But if you wouldn't mind filling it in, just sending it on directly then to the local enterprise office, because it gives a chance for us to kind of collate that feedback. And if there's anything missing or whatever, any feedback, that's fine. We absolutely take it on board from the training perspective, and it helps us just to hone these courses, just to make sure that they're helpful. But it is, as I said, it's unfortunately only available in the doc format. That's kind of on me. As I said, I just didn't get a chance to do the poll out, so you'll be able to download it at the very end of the day. But look, sorry about that. And just again, a nice little segue from what we're doing here. So before the break, we were becoming familiar with the Canva interface, how to sign up, how to access the designs feature, how to then start designing. It's using a template, what the design window looked like, and what various elements within the navigation sections and how they worked and what they meant and so on, right? So I hope you've kind of got a broad understanding of just how vast the software is, but really, when you start using it, how simple it will become, okay? It's not something that you're just going to get used to overnight. I fully recognize that, particularly if you're just a beginner. But when you're getting started, when you're kind of getting more, and as you become more and more familiar with it, the more you use it, the more kind of adventurous you become with it, and the more fun it is to use. And I heard somebody say in the office here, they heard me say about saying, I feel like I'm cheating when I'm able to do this. They said, you're such a nerd. I said, yeah, I am such a nerd, and I'm very proud of that. So likewise with this, you will find that you'll absolutely love using it, the more you do. So with that in mind, we're back in our design here, okay, and we're back on our Mother's Day design that we were working through or working with here, okay. And again, it's for a giftware store, just a generic giftware store, nothing too specific, just for an example. But when we want to, basically, once we've loaded in a template, we're probably going to want to start to change bits, right? Bits and pieces. And we're probably going to want to do a little bit more with it. And of course we can. Of course we can start changing things. And this window here is what enables you to do that. You've already seen me do it to some degree so far. Okay, so it's nothing too new to you or too shocking. But in terms of what you can do, I mean, again, out of the box, the free version is pretty good. Okay. So when you want to change a specific element, all you need to do is just hover over it using your mouse, okay? Or if you're on your phone, you can click the element, or if you have a stylus, you can use the stylus on your tablet or device, or even if you're in the app, it's the same. You just hover your mouse over it, right? And you just select the element by clicking on that particular element then, okay? So you can see here, I've selected the Mother's Day element, right? And that's what's selected. Likewise, if I wanted to select the 2023 down here, which is 2 years ago now, I can't believe I'm saying that, you'll see it gets highlighted with a purple box that shows you how large the element is in essence. And I would then click it if I wanted to make changes and select it, right? So all I'm doing is just showing you that here. I'm just showing you how to select different elements. And of course, you can select individual elements as well, graphics and the stamp again. Poor stamp is getting dragged and deleted and everything. So at the end of the day, everything you see on the screen is changeable and moldable to what you need it to do. Okay. Likewise, there's some things that are constant, okay, in terms of your design. Your background, for example, you may find that you select the background and it's actually just a global, as I say, background. So what you would do is you would select the background here, okay? And you can see here the box around the entire graphic is purple, and that indicates that it's selected, okay? So again, I'm just clicking different elements here to show you. Now, depending on what you click and depending on the element that you click, a bar will appear just above the design or just above your navigation window here, or if you're in the app, to the best of my knowledge, just below on your phone, just below the content screen. Either way, something is going to appear, right? If you choose text, you're going to see a text bar here, okay? And you'll probably be familiar with this if you use Microsoft Word, Google Docs. That's pretty much what this is. This allows you to change things like the typeface, the size, the color, And even to do a bit more than that, even to add effects, okay, to the text, things like shadows and outlines, to animate it, okay, and then to position it, okay, to choose somewhere on the screen to position it. Again, I'll be showing you that in a moment. If you choose a graphic, okay, what you'll find is that sometimes you'll have the ability to change certain colors of that graphic. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to change this purple, this kind of lavender, I should say, sheet that this lady is nursing with, we might choose a slightly different color here, maybe a green color, and it changes to green. Okay, so again, I don't need to be a graphic designer to go in and start changing things. Now, this isn't always going to be available. It'll depend on the graphic, it will depend on the elements you've added in and so on, but you can do a little bit with it. Okay, so that's what you can do with this kind of bar up here, and I'll go into those bars in a second and walk through various options. The other things that you can do when you select an element include things like resizing, rotating, and that's really simple to do, right? To rotate, you can probably see here on the bottom of the screen, you didn't see my mouse there, hopefully it reappears. Just give it a second. There you can see my mouse. You would bring your mouse down to that kind of circle with the arrows, okay? And you can see here my mouse has changed to an icon that indicates this is where you're going to rotate from. So you can rotate the content element depending on your needs, okay? Like so. You can also move the content element depending on your needs. All you need to do is just left click or hold your thumb down on your mobile and just drag it to wherever you want on the screen. Okay, so you can drag your content element, and all the numbers and everything coming up, I'll explain them again in a few minutes. Right? You can also resize the content element, and you can resize it using your corners here, okay, and your mouse. All right, we just wait for it to pop up there, and you see here the top right hand corner of that particular, as I said, nursing image there. We can drag and resize. Okay, we can drag and resize for each corner that we want to do that from. Okay, so I'm now dragging on the bottom right here. Okay, so again, we can drag, we can resize, and we can rotate. And that's universal. It doesn't matter if you've got text selected, you do that using the text. Okay, you can drag it. You can also resize the text using the corners there. Okay, so it's nice and simple. But again, let's say I make a mistake. Let's say I resize this too much. How do I go back? Well, I just hit that undo button that's up the very top there in the blue bar where it says undo. I can also, as you can see, hit Control-Z or Command-Z if I'm on a Mac, and it will redo, or undo, I should say, the mistake that I made. Okay, so really simple graphical manipulation. You don't need to be a graphic designer to do it. You can just simply drag and drop your selected elements. When it comes to your content window, and I'm just going to browse down here, okay, and simplify things a little bit. When it comes to your content window, when you drag elements and resize them, there's what's known as a grid, okay? And you have what are called kind of what I'll call safety boundaries, or boundaries of a document that are going to be visible, okay, across all devices. And this is indicated by the purple box that appears when you're dragging content and it kind of reaches a certain point in the document, okay, at the top or the bottom. All right, so really, really useful tool. You'll also notice that as I'm dragging around, sometimes these weird lines appear. And you're saying, that's really weird. What do those lines mean? Well, that indicates kind of a centralized position. This purple line down the middle, down the vertical middle, I should say, indicates that the content is now horizontally aligned, okay? And ironically, this horizontal line means the content is now vertically aligned. So it's perfectly centered in the document, okay? So you can see here, this means that the content is horizontally aligned, i.e. centered when approaching from the screen from the left and reading it over to the right. And then this would indicate that it's vertically aligned, okay? That horizontal line, that purple line that you see there, or pink line going across the screen, indicates that it's now vertically aligned. So it's perfectly centered, okay? And the best part about Canva is that depending on the content element that you've got, right, or depending on the content element that you have, you can actually center things according to other elements, okay? What do I mean by this in practical terms? Well, look, so I now have a mother's love up the top left there, for example, right? Or in the left-hand side of the document. So I might want to put a mother's love knows no bounds underneath that a mother's love statement, but I want to center it. I want to make it look good. Now, of course, it's not actually going to look good, but you get what I mean by this. You see here where a mother's love, you can see that kind of pink dotted line now. That means it's centered to a mother's love. Okay. So that kind of pink dotted line there means it's centered to a mother's love. Likewise, if I had other content elements, so I'm going to do a bit more advanced stuff here now for a second. I'm just going to copy this. Okay. Likewise, if I had a second statement that I had in and I wanted to basically evenly space them apart and center them, you can see here Canva automatically gives me numbers and grids to do that. So you can see that the 79 image means it's 79 pixels below and above, okay, the image. But you can also see that obviously the central bounding line shows that it's absolutely centered to the I'm trying to remember now, the horizontal of the document, okay. Ironically, the vertical lines means it's horizontally aligned, and the horizontal line means it's vertically aligned. I know it's very confusing. I apologize for that. So likewise, what you have here is that it's centered to also the other content elements there. Okay, it's centered to knows no bounds here and knows no bounds here. So those kind of lines there indicate where it's aligned to. Okay, so 79 and 79. So some really useful things, so that rather than have to go pixel by pixel and, you know, literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if that's the way you do it, don't do that. You can space things out evenly. So now I've increased the knows no bounds above by 1 pixel. So I pushed it up by 1 pixel by simply pressing the arrow key. And likewise below, I just drag it then until it matches the 80 pixels, right? So a nice even number. So again, just really simple little things that can really aesthetically please make the visual, more aesthetically pleasing to the end user. Okay. So that is a simple version of this. You can get even more complicated and you can start to align things according to where other things are in a document, right? You can align it, say, to the petal here or you could align this Mother's Day, statement, or this Mother's Day wording to the edge of that petal there on the flower image. Okay. You can see that vertical line showing up there, that dotted vertical line, I should say, showing up there to allow us to do that. Okay. You also see another vertical line, horizontal line, just underneath the mothers and between Mother's Day, between the words there, between the two lines. That's horizontally aligned to the 7. Okay. So lots of horizontal and verticals. I'm starting to get confused. Never mind you, I'm sure. So likewise, you can just see that it makes it easier for you to align images to where you need them to be. Okay. There's also quick ways to do this, right? So there's even quicker ways than dragging and dropping, if you will. And I'm just going to delete these two. Let's say I had a document that loaded up a mother's love in the wrong place, or I dragged it to the wrong place. What I can do is I can use this quick option bar to realign content and reposition it based on my clicking of a button here and my selection of what I want to do. So I can do things, I can click to align to page in terms of middle or center, and it will perfectly align it to the middle and center. Now, in a way, it's quicker to just do that, right? And I would agree with you there. But if you are not 100% positive, or you just want to make sure, okay, say, for example, it's 1 pixel out there or a few pixels out, you just align it to the middle and the center. Okay. Likewise, you can align to the very top of a document, the very bottom of a document, the very right-hand side of a document, or the very left-hand side of a document. Okay. Hope this makes sense so far. All right. So depending on what you select, depending on what the element is, a slightly different version of this bar will appear each time. But things like position and animate are universal. Okay, you can reposition and recalibrate any graphic to suit your needs based on your positioning parameters. Now, what do each of the other pieces mean when it comes to this? Well, the first thing is the font. Okay, and from here you can choose what fonts you want to use. And you can usually find some pretty well-known fonts, things like Arial, Times New Roman, Laura, Inter, Railway, all those kinds of fonts if you're familiar with any of this. But likewise, some lesser known fonts. Okay, and you can type in certain keywords that give you a particular feel. Okay, so for example, code, right? That may give you a bit of coding. You can also look for font styling here, okay, as well. So if there's a particular theme you're going for, let's say you're running a retro night in a cafe, right? You might want to find some retro font here. Maybe this kind of A Mother's Love, okay, turning it into Harlow Bold there. So you're basically choosing your font here is what I'm saying from this particular screen. And when you are at this particular menu option up here, and when you click it, you'll be brought into the fonts tab here so that you can, or the fonts menu here, so that you can select the one that's most applicable to you. Text styles allows you to set up literally individual rules for each element, a heading, a subheading, and so on. Okay, so you can apply these yourself. Okay, you can change them yourself where needs be. Okay. So again, that's in things like branding and so on. But for the time being, we're just going to stick with the simple things. We're just going to let you change your font here. Go into font and choose what it is that you want to use. So I might use Montserrat for this, right? Or DM Sans. Yeah. Likewise, you can resize your font from here as well. Okay, for whatever reason you may need to do that. So it works in points format as opposed to pixels. So 14 points will be 14 points. We obviously can't see that. 72 points will be 72 points. It's just the sizing mechanism. Okay, it's like Microsoft Word. That's the simplest way that I could say it. Okay, so Mother's Love there. Yeah, you can also change the text color, and here you can choose colors that are already in the document. Okay, so what it will do is it will look for common colors throughout that are available throughout maybe a particular graphic or through a particular photo, and it will allow you to select ones. Okay, so you might find that pink matches in with a particular pink up here and so on. Okay, likewise, you can choose solid colors or you can select your own, okay, using the 256 million colors that are available here. Okay, you'd be a few years going through them. The quickest thing that I could say here is you would use things like color psychology and whatnot to find the colors you want to use, and then use a hex code, okay, to do that. If you're struggling to find color themes, there's a tool called Adobe Color, okay, Adobe Color. And this is a color palette generator. And this allows you to find matching colors, okay, aesthetically pleasing colors, shall we say, okay, to do that. Okay, so you can create a color palette, okay, using a particular color. For example, you might choose this pink, right, just for argument's sake. Copy this across. Again, maybe more advanced users might find this more useful than new users. We change the color and it will generate, or at least we try to change the color. Try this again. Apologies, folks. Sorry about that. And it will match colors according to this one here. And you can choose the kind of theme you want: monochromatic, triad, okay, 3 color focuses, complementary, square, compound. Now, again, I'm not a color psychologist. Okay, so some of you will probably be more qualified than I am. But if you're struggling to find kind of a good flow of color throughout your document and so on, this is a good way to look, or a good tool to look at. So it's called color.adobe.com. Okay, there's other tools as well, color palettes, okay, that you can use for color palettes, including just let me see, coolers.co. Just bear with me for a sec. Sorry, now. Coolers.co here. Okay, this will give you a color palette generator. Okay, so it'll actually give you palettes to work from, and likewise, it will find matching colors as well for each one. And then you can manipulate as needs be. What you do if you use these more advanced tools, what you can do is you can simply copy in what we call the hex codes here, okay, into this little document color section here, and this little option that pops up. Okay, so sorry, there was a slight delay there. I was jumping too quickly. You can pop it into, okay, that hex code that we were just on. I was going too quickly, so I'll just go back to Adobe there for a second. I'd hit copy here to copy that hex code Okay, you don't need to know what a hex code is, apart from to say it's how the color is identified. Okay, and then you go back into Canva. You choose the element that you want. So in this case, a mother's love. Okay, you would hit the text color option in the menu bar, as you can see here. And then you would hit the little kind of add new color, the color wheel looking with the plus icon, the color wheel looking circle. And you would hit add new color and then paste your hex code over into that window there. Okay, you can see that changed. Hit enter, and then it's changed to that new hex code. Okay, so again, really simple, nothing too advanced in a way. All you're simply doing there is changing font color. I mean, I could spend hours probably even going through that, but we'll move on quickly. We then have styling things like bolding text, italics, underline, strike through, should the need arise. You can capitalize your words as well. You can choose how to align the font using the alignment tab. You can build lists out. We'll say the lists are actually quite limited at the moment. To the best of my knowledge, we only have dots and for our lists, and then numbers as well. Okay, so it is quite limited in that degree. You'd have to use advanced graphics and things if you want to create custom lists. You can then do things like spacing, or manage your spacing in between individual letters and then lines themselves. What does this mean? It means that you can reduce the amount of space between letters. Again, that's at your discretion. Okay, it depends on what you're trying to say. And then you can choose how much space there is between lines as well. Okay. Again, I'm not a printer or designer by trade, so I'm not going to start talking about optimal sizing or anything like that. All I can know is some basic design principles. You want to make sure that your content is readable, legible. So for example, this font color would be terrible. You need a darker font color. You maybe need it in a serif font with good spacing, maybe a few more points in line spacing, double the line spacing, that kind of thing. Okay, so simple things like that, right? Likewise, you can then set the transparency of the element. Okay, and this is universal. Doesn't matter what type of thing you've got selected in this window. That's what you're going to be doing here, selecting the transparency. You can add in more advanced effects as promised. So you can add in things like shadow, lift, hollow, splice, outline. This gives the font a little bit more life. Very often, sometimes you hear in projects, we want to make this pop. Okay, and that makes me itch. If you want to make a pop, usually I have to ask the questions, what do you mean by that? And usually the person doesn't know. So what you do is you look at things like adding a shadow, right, to give it a bit more depth, or to give it a bit more of a kind of an obvious attention, or to grab somebody's attention, excuse me, and to make it a bit more obvious in the design. So they're self-explanatory, and you can explore these in your own time. They simply just mean adding kind of more to the initial thing. The one I use most regularly, or the ones I use most regularly, are shadow, lift, and background. Okay, the background is okay. It doesn't do a great job at squaring. That looks a bit like a hospital, like a hospital logo there. So I'd probably avoid using that particular one, and I'd probably put a square in the background instead, and then layer it. Again, something we'll be getting into shortly. Okay, so that is effects. That adds in, just again, effects on text. You can also add in shape if you want. It's slightly different to the graphics manipulator that was, or the font manipulator that was available through the apps earlier. This curve allows you to add in a specific type of curve. Okay, so if you're creating a logo, for example, and you wanted to have a perfectly rounded circle here, you would curve your text and then put in a circle and so on. So you get what I'm hopefully saying there. It adds a bit of a curve to something, okay, right up to a perfect circle. Yeah. So again, it just adds a bit of shape to it. Animate. This is one of the key things here, right? Animate allows you to literally add animations to an element and not just text. There are going to be ones specific to graphics and to text. In this case, what we have is some animation for text. Okay. There's a pretty bad one to use there because it's going to be very slow. We have a send here, okay, which I've just hovered over. You're probably not going to see that. My apologies. You have a mother's love coming up here through typewriter. It's really not being my friend today, is it? Okay, let me just slow it down slightly there. Oh no, sorry, yes, of course it's premium when we want to do that. So what you would do, typically speaking, and apologies for that and the slight lag here, is it would add an animation to the text. And what you can see here is it's doing a specific thing. So typewriter literally looks like a typewriter. It literally looks like letter by letter, case by case, it's coming up. Ascend means it's coming up, and so on and so forth. Sort of like PowerPoint animations, right? The key thing here to know is that you can use these in videos, presentations, any multimedia where there's animation involved. Okay, so again, all we're sort of doing here is just adding a little bit of character, a little bit of life to our document. Okay, likewise, we have general animations, and these are specific. These aren't specific to text. You'll also find these in. You'll also find these for graphics and so on and so forth, as you'll see in a moment. Okay. The last thing then is, once again, position. This is where you can choose very quickly where you want to position something, the center of a page, the middle of a page, but more so, you can do things like resize it to a very exact pixel width, or align it to a very exact X or Y dimension. Again, not something, if you're going to be kind of, unless you're doing designs with a very particular use case in mind, something you need to be too concerned with, but it is good to know that you can basically lock the ratio and resize something using exact pixels, for example, 800 pixels, right, so that it reflects that sizing. Okay, you're probably not, as I said, going to need to know that unless you're using those kinds of tools on a semi-regular basis, though. That's where to find them, is in position, if you are looking for that, though. The other thing then is, I'm just going to take out an element and pop it into our document, is the bar that appears when we have a graphical element in our document, right? So I'm going to just move this down. I'm going to go back into elements, and I'm going to search for a Mother's Day graphic and add it in. So I'm going to add in the Mother's Day bouquet again. Okay. And again, this is where the bar will change slightly. So this bar up here, hopefully where you can see my mouse starting to move across, hovering over color now and so on. This is where it's going to start to change slightly for you. Okay. And the options will be slightly different to before. There's the universal ones: position, animate, transparency. But then we have the, again, contextually element, and the ones that are contextual to the element that's selected coming up here. So this edit button will bring you into a more advanced photo or graphic editor that allows you to adjust things like brightness and so on and so forth. That allows you to add in maybe certain effects and so on. Again, we go into that when we're doing photos in a few minutes. You can also, once again, as I showed you earlier, choose different colors. If you wanted to apply branding colors, for example, to specific elements, that's no problem. You can do it from here just by selecting the one that looks right. So that green will change the green elements in there, perhaps to maybe purple or maybe brown. Okay, similar brown. Doesn't look great, I know, but just for an example, and so on. You can also add borders to your images. Okay, so you can add borders using these options here. You can then customize your borders. Okay, select your color, for example, maybe a pink border. All right, and then you can round your borders as well. Okay, so this is all to do with the outline of the element. Okay, again, the likelihood that is, if you're using graphics, you're probably not going to use borders. Okay, so this would come more in for things like photos and so on. You can also crop images. Okay, self-explanatory. You can crop things down so that only certain things appear. Okay, and you can expand images using AI. Okay, so you can expand images out. Again, something that's available in the premium version. You can flip an image horizontally or vertically. Okay, usually I would flip it horizontally. I very rarely flip it vertically because it doesn't look good at all. So when, for example, maybe a person is facing the wrong way around, we need to have them facing another side. If they're pointing to something, we can flip the image horizontally. Okay, and then of course we have transparency again, animate, which allows us to animate. As I mentioned, those are the universally applicable animations here. Rise, pan, and so on. So they'll do a specific thing depending on what one we select, and then you can customize it depending on your account level, and then the position. Okay, so with this in mind, we're now at a little bit more of an advanced stage. Okay, so we're ready to do a little bit more. Okay, we're ready to add in a little bit more to our document and have it do a little bit more for us. The first thing you might say to me is, well, Philip, what if, sorry, I see somebody typing a question, so I'm keeping a close eye on this. What if I have different layers in my documents and I want to restructure the layers? Okay, I want to bring something forward, I want to bring something backwards. Well, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Okay, the first thing is you can choose the position tab here. Okay, and what this allows you to do is, again, to move things to forward and backwards. It's the icon beside position. I'm going to get into that in a few minutes, Sylvia. Okay, bear with me on that. It's for copying your style, so I'll get into it. Okay, just bear with me on that. I don't want to get too excited too soon. So what we're doing is we are essentially taking an image when we're for example want to reposition it, or we want to change the position, and we can choose the position here. We can choose to move it forward or backwards, or in a more advanced way, we can use something called layers. Okay, now this is where it starts to get a little bit more kind of detailed. Okay, and a little bit more confusing. We have a background layer. Okay, so we can select our background layer. We have a vertical line up the very top. Sorry, I should say a horizontal line. See, I'm still getting confused. We have our bouquet. We have our font. We have Mother's Day, two Mother's Day pieces of font. And we have our dynamic text here, our page 2 that's being rendered because we put that in earlier. Let's say, for example, I wanted to change the position of the bouquet to bring it out to the front for some reason. What I could do is simply just drag and click. Okay, click and drag, I should say, and position it where I want to position it. Okay, so we're going to bring it back there. Okay, I can also do some quick things with this. Things like align to page, okay, if I needed to. Delete, duplicate, okay? And I'll come back to Sylvia's question in a second because it was a very well-timed question, right? So let's say we have this happening here. Right, I want to maybe just do this as a cheat here. Say, for example, I have this situation here where our bouquet is now in front of the Mother's Day and I want it to be behind. What I can either do is rearrange it via the position here, bring it backward, or I can go into layers and I can just simply drag and drop. Okay, now it still doesn't look great, right? Because a mother's love is obviously still covered, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from here. So what I might do is I might want to change the transparency on this. Okay, to maybe 25%. So mother's love is visible, but the bouquet itself is still somewhat resident. Okay, it's still somewhat visible as well. Again, doesn't look great. Now, let's say, for example, I really liked this particular slide, and I really liked this particular version of what I've created. Okay, for some reason. Again, it's probably not going to be the case, but this is a really nice slide, and I want to copy this design. What I can do is I can simply hit the duplicate page button here. Okay, and it will duplicate the page and create a carbon copy for me, exactly the same as before. But let's say, for example, I wanted to change the background and I wanted to make it purple. Well, I could do that here, right? Now it's a darker shade of purple. And let's say I really liked the way this typeface was, okay, up on the top slide here. And this, Sylvia, is where I'm going to answer your question now. What I can do is I can either copy the element, okay, I can right click and copy it and then paste it, right? Just allow that, and it will literally copy the same element. Or what I can do is I can hit that little copy style button, okay? And what that will do, or will allow me to do, is to paste that style over to another page, over to another piece of text, and it will apply that style there. Okay, so that's what that is for. So where that is useful, right, more so than font, is if, for example, we had a shadow, okay, very specific settings, we had a specific color, right, adding some complication to this. Okay, we had a curve maybe on it as well, okay, where this particularly is useful. What I could do is I could copy this again, or just hit that button once it's selected and then apply it here as well. Okay, so I'm copying the individual styling. I'm not copying the text, I'm copying the styling. Okay, so it's a quick way to move styles between pages without needing to do too much, if that makes sense. Likewise, if I liked the way a particular graphic was laid out, I liked particular colors, I could copy it to another graphic. Okay, now, to be honest with you, it's not going to do great with graphics because each graphic is obviously going to be slightly unique, whereas with fonts, it's a little different. Now, in theory, I could also copy style across to font, right? However, it would need to be a single color. This graphic would need to be a single color for that to happen. Okay, apologies. The sun is coming in, so I'm just going to shut down our blind here. So just give me 2 seconds while I do that. We don't want any glares coming in. There we go. Now, apologies for that, folks. Sorry, didn't expect the sun to be so strong today. I'm not complaining though. So we have basically some tools that allow us to do things very quickly and move kind of quickly between each element, okay, and apply some stylings that we've already set. All right. So again, maybe we want to move things. We're dragging, dropping, and so on. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, we had a content element that we wanted to keep in a particular place, or we wanted to make it uneditable or unchangeable so as to avoid any accidents, right, in inverted commas. What you can do is you can select an element, right, and then just above that particular one, another little toolbar will appear, okay, just to confuse everybody even more with more toolbars. And what we can do here is we can lock that element, okay? So what then happens is I can't change that element unless I unlock it. So let's say, for example, this was a template that I wanted to use across different pages. I wanted a mother's love to consistently appear in the same way, but I wanted to change this to maybe a piece of giftware or something like that, a photo of a particular piece of giftware. Well, I could simply just duplicate this, right? Delete that. But no matter what I do with this, it won't delete. Okay, so I'm hitting the backspace quite violently here. All right. Until I unlock it, that's going to remain the same. It's not going to change. Likewise, I could do it with these here, and I can lock them. Okay, and I'm going to show you what I just did there in a second, and I can lock these elements. Okay. I can also unlock them just by simply selecting them. Okay. Now, again, just to jump backwards a little bit. Let's say, for example, I wanted to take this bouquet and this particular statement here, mother's love, to another page, right? I'm just going to make this a bit brighter now, right? What I can do is I can quickly left click and drag my mouse over the different elements. So I'm not sure, maybe this is because it's locked. Yeah, because it's locked. So it needs to be unlocked for you to be able to do this. What I can do is I can drag my mouse, having left click, over what I want to copy, for example. Okay. And what I can simply do is right click again and copy and then paste. Okay, and it'll paste the two elements for me. But I can do a bit more than that. Okay, and this is where we're going to get a bit more advanced with this. When I drag and click and release, excuse me, I also have the option to group. Okay, and group creates literally what it sounds like, a group of assets, and brings them together. They bring different elements together into one unit. Okay, and what that allows me to do is to resize the entire unit, resize the entire group, to drag the entire group. So it brings elements together quickly. Okay, again, just simply applying these kind of rules here, okay, and showing you how it works. I can also ungroup them by simply selecting the elements that I want to ungroup, okay, within the group itself, and ungroup. Okay, and then they're back to individual pieces there. Okay, so let's say I wanted to do that with the headers up here. I could simply select group. Okay, and then I can drag them, bring them wherever I need. I can copy them, I can paste them. Or if I wanted to say take out an individual element, I could ungroup. Okay, and then drag accordingly. Now, up to recently, full disclosure, when you ungrouped an element, it would usually just default to the two here. So I need to see why that didn't happen. At least I believe that was the case anyway, so apologies. So what happens, so again, this is something that I'm only seeing here. When you group and you ungroup a specific element, the entire group becomes unselected. It used to be that, and I'm not sure if there's perhaps a reason for this, excuse me, that it would just default to the last two, okay, outside of what you had unselected. But that's not the case anymore, okay? So now it's unselecting them all right? or ungrouping them all, right? Just to be aware. So again, really quick, really easy ways to just kind of organize, collect content together so that it becomes much easier to drag, to drop, and so on. Okay. Once again, just to review this content screen before I move on to photos and some manipulation things here when it comes to graphics and so on. When you're dragging, try to keep it within the safe space. Try to keep, or sizing anything, try to keep it within the safe space of the document. Okay, that's that little purple box that's appearing there on your screen. If you need to, you can see here that the word Mother's Day is centered just outside the box. So it's centered, literally centered on the line that appears. Now it's just going to do this because it has various different things. So what you can see here, hopefully in a second, is that Mother's Day, the word Mother's Day that I've selected here up the top left, has sort of been centered on the boundary box, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can do things like that. Again, it's just little design hacks and stuff. If you need to center content, you need to make it look good, but you don't want to go too far outside the boundary zone. That's it. That's a good way to do it. Say, for example, a little logo and so on. That's where that will come in. Okay. So that is the basics of the content window. Okay. And there's a fair bit more in there, but again, at an introductory level, that will give you hopefully the knowledge to start just taking in elements, playing around with them, resizing them, animating them, just again in a really basic way. The more advanced things that you can do in this are things like photo editing. Okay. And usually what I would do is I would have a photo to hand, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the element library for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the word Wexford. I'm going to hope to God that there's a free image for Wexford. How do you make sure that if you put it on each slide is enabled? I'll show you that in a moment, Imelda. It depends if you're creating a PDF, what you would do is, that's actually a great question. I'm sorry I didn't cover that. What you would do is you would go into the element that you've created here, right? So for example, this paragraph text, I would highlight what I want to link, okay? And I would choose the link here, and then I would type in the link. Okay, so google.ie, for example, right? That's then linked. So if you were to extract this as a PDF, right, or a PowerPoint, then that link would be clickable. However, bear in mind if you're extracting a video or an image, that's not going to be clickable. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah, sorry, Imelda, it does make sense. I didn't see your video there. Yeah, perfect. Brilliant, brilliant, really good question. Sorry I didn't cover. So sorry, folks, when you're in the editor, right, if you need to add a link, it's that little, what you do is you obviously go into the text here, and it's this little button here that appears, this kind of chain image, this hyperlink image. Okay, this little link icon. You select it, and then you type in your address and set up the rules accordingly. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. Right, so the next thing then is photos and graphic manipulation. Now, let's see. Oh, we do have some images here. Great. And so on. So that's good. So let's say, for example, we had an image that we wanted to do a bit of basic manipulation to. We can do that in Canva. Now, again, it is not Photoshop. It's not Lightroom. So don't expect to become photographers overnight either, right? But if you find, for example, that a particular image is a little bit too bright, a little bit too dark, or somebody says, no, I want it to be a bit brighter, or it doesn't bring out my eyes enough, or whatever they're saying, you can edit a photo. Okay, you can edit a photo in a sort of more advanced way than perhaps you would be able to in just your default camera settings, right? What you do when you want to do this is you import the photo. So I'm doing this from Elements here. You could also upload the photo directly from your desktop. So you could simply have a photo in your downloads folder, in your desktop, wherever it is, and you just simply drag it literally onto the document and it will upload it. It will then upload and store into the cloud for you, and it will be available via the upload section here. You'll see a nice little animation. I'm going to show you this later on that comes up and has a little fish swimming in it. Okay, and that indicates that it's uploading, right? But otherwise, once it's done, you'll be able to manipulate it in the document. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a slide with this here. I'm going to crop the image, and I can do that by dragging, okay, on these little kind of lines that appear in the corners of the document. This means it's going to resize and crop the image for me. If I were to use the corners, it would scale it for me. Okay, so it's going to resize and crop the image in this situation. Yeah, probably not the best photo to use, but look, it's a good start because it's already quite bright and so on. Look, so I now have a full-sized image for the Instagram post that I'm creating here. Okay, so what I can do is I can go into this particular image, I can select it, and then I can hit that edit button that's up here, okay, in that toolbar. I'll then be brought to a screen that you've seen from earlier that allows me to do certain things, apply certain effects and so on. But what I might do is I might want to do a little bit of manual adjustment to the photo. So I would choose the adjust option here. And using this, I can just simply edit to my heart's content. So I can change things such as the brightness of an image. Again, I'm not going to be doing much with this. The contrast of an image, the highlights, the shadows, the whites, the color balance, and so on. Okay, so you can do all of this from here. Let's say, for example, you had a particular theme or a particular color that you wanted to grade your photos to, maybe a particular kind of blue or a more kind of warm yellow. You can do all that from here. Okay, you can also hit the auto adjust button so that it auto adjusts the contrast and brightness and everything for you. Okay, and again, that's a free tool. In the premium version, and this is where the premium version starts to pay off, you can do even more than this, and you can use their Magic Studio tools for that. And bear with me while I change over in a few minutes to show you some of these. If you are an e-commerce store, if you have an e-commerce presence and you have products that you need to take photos of, and you want to have access to things like background removers, magic erasers, and so on, Canva has this out of the box, and these tools are really good. When I'm on the fly, if I'm with a client, for example, I'll use the BG remover if I'm taking photos to upload to their store that day. I'm not going to have time to go through Lightroom, go through the editing, go through content removal. I just use the BG remover. When I use the BG remover, background remover, it removes the background of the photo, for example. And I will show you that, so bear with me. Okay. So again, that's kind of the key. The key thing here is that you can just edit photos and do some basic manipulation using the adjust. You can add in filters and effects if you want, but the adjustment is going to be really useful for those of you who perhaps want to do just a bit of fine tuning on the color grading, etc. in your photos. The next thing then to know is that in the Elements tab itself, there exists other different types of content you can add to your design, whatever it is that you're doing. Outside of things such as graphics and shapes, you've also got things like stickers, which are little animated GIFs, okay? And these just add in little, literally stickers, okay? You've also got, again, photos and videos, self-explanatory, audio. You've also got charts, okay? And these are really, really nice. These are actually animated now, and you can add in data to your charts. This is really useful if you are, again, showcasing maybe an infographic, a static, or in a presentation. These are really useful. You can animate them, okay, for your presentation, so you can again see individualized highlights as well. Okay. If I were to save this as a PNG or a JPEG, it will flatten this. Okay, what does that mean in plain English? It means that none of what you can see here will be accessible. You won't be able to, you won't be able to do things like this, where I'm literally hovering over something and I'm seeing series and item. It will literally just save it as a graphic like this. Okay. But again, charts, really useful function if you need it. You can select different types of charts as well, should the need arise. I use these probably 60% of the time outside of Tableau and Power BI and all that kind of stuff. I'm using Canva if I need to create a simple infographic for social media and so on, because you can see here it's really easy to fill in your data. You can also customize your chart as well, okay, to some degree. You can add in different colors as well, should the need arise. Excuse me, I'm kind of jumping with my mouse here. You can add in different colors and so on, should the need arise, okay? So you have lots of different options when it comes to chart customization. I absolutely encourage you to explore and use them. Really popular format of content on social media, infographics and things like that. You can also do, kind of jumping down here, you can also do things like predefined polls and quizzes. That's more for things like websites or interactive pieces of content where you're sharing the URL directly from Canva itself, okay? So stick to your stick to your interactive stickers on Instagram itself. If you're creating stories and so on, you can add in tables, exactly what it sounds like, tables. You literally add in, just like Microsoft Word or Excel, obviously not the same as Excel, but just add in different tables of data, and you can customize them accordingly. You've also got access to, sorry, I'll just delete this now, table. You've also got access to probably one of the biggest time savers, things like frames and grids and mockups, right? With frames, what you can do is you can drag photos into predefined shapes, okay? Basic shapes like, obviously, squares, triangles, diamonds, stars, all sorts of things. Films and photos, okay? If you're going for a particular feel on an image. Devices, device mockups. Okay, so for example, full screen iPhone there, an iMac, some kind of tablet, some kind of device. And the way this works is, and it's going to be the same for the other things I'll show you in a second. The way this simply works is you find the photo you want. Okay, so I'm just going to go back out of this for a second. I'm going to drag in a new photo. So for example, this, and I'm going to drag it in to the element there, and it will place it in it for me. Okay, so again, really cool, really simple. And then I can go in, double click it, and drag it accordingly, or resize it accordingly if I need to, and it will display within the frame there of that particular device. Okay, so again, where I found that was in Elements. I scroll down, and I went into Frames. Okay, I also have grids, which work in exactly the same way, but they're enabling you to select a particular layout, okay, for how you want to maybe style different photos and so on. If your photos have a high degree of detail and you want to show off individual photos, I only recommend this for overviews. Maybe things like product showcases or fashion showcases. That's really where I would limit the use of this. But if I'm showcasing a product, I want to showcase every angle. And what I would do is I would create a separate slide for each photo. Okay, just a little thing to be aware of. Mockups are exactly what they sound like. They allow you to basically drag an element. Okay, again, I'm just going to show you this very quickly. A photo, okay, in this case. Oops, sorry, I'm applying that as a background when I shouldn't be. I'll explain all that in a few minutes when we're in the more advanced stuff. What that allows me to do, in theory, or at least it should, is drag that into the frame of the device and then play with it accordingly. Okay, so that it displays how I want it to. Okay, so as you can see, it's rendered onto the device there. I'm not sure who or what you would use this for in each of your individual contexts. Actually, no, that's a lie. I can see where this might come in handy for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it's going to be situational dependent. Okay, so mockups are a very clever way to maybe show behind the scenes, or maybe if you want to show something in action and so on. The next thing then in Elements, and I think one of the last things, is the collections of content. So this is, sorry about this. It's really bugging out on me. This is where you can simply get things like predefined icons and so on, according to a specific theme. Okay, so folksy Christmas, for example. All right. I don't really use these. I generally look for individual elements. I probably should, right? I'm going to be completely honest with you. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for specific themes and so on, in terms of icons or graphics, this is where to find them. Okay, if you're looking for a collection of similarly drawn graphics that have a similar aesthetic, you can kind of see where this is coming in. This looks like New Year's, right? So that's our element window. So you have everything from photos, videos, and music to videos and charts and the whole 9 yards. But you're going to want a bit more, aren't you, than this? If you're going to be using videos, you're going to need a video, right? You're going to need to put it into a video. If you're creating presentations, you're going to need presentations. So that's where I'm going to start moving over to the more advanced stuff. Okay, so I hope I haven't scared everybody off too much so far. At this stage now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up my own Canva account, if you can bear with me, right? So this is my Canva account here. And hopefully it'll load up pretty quickly. And in my Canva account, I have Canva Pro. Okay, and Canva Pro allows me to do a bit more. However, if you want to create a video, if you want to create a presentation, that's all free. So you don't need to worry about any of that. But what I'm going to show you very briefly is the branding toolkit. And with the brand, what I can do is, I'm just typing, go into our brand here. What I can do is I can add in things like my logos, my colors, the fonts. We don't have any set fonts at the moment for this. I've actually undergone a little bit of a change there. I can add in a tone of voice for any content I want to generate, photos, graphics, icons, etc. Whereas perhaps a client who I know won't mind us sharing, well, I know none of these would mind us sharing. We have a bike hire store up in Westport. They have a particular logo and look and feel. And then more specifically, there's Elm Grove there, another type of client, florist slash flower shop. They have particular branding, particular logos, colors, and so on. Okay, so you see all this come into play here. And this is useful if I want to manage content on a bigger scale. Okay, and we have other people with other accounts that have access to other branding assets as well. So this is just me, but others in the team have different branding kits themselves. Okay, so that's just branding kits. So it's just so you could see it in real time and what I can add to it and what it does. When it comes to things like videos and presentations and so on, we're going to create another design, right? But we're going to create maybe something like an Instagram reel, which is what's obviously a popular social media format. So what I need to do is hit that create button and look for Instagram reels. Okay, so I can see that here, Instagram reel. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit this little template option, and I'm going to bring us into that design. So you can see what's happened this time is the window has changed just ever so slightly. We now have just below this kind of canvas area what looks like a timeline, because that's what it is. It's a timeline. We're creating something that is animated, right? If you were creating a presentation, it would be pretty similar. And I'll show you that now as well. And don't worry, I'm coming back into videos in a second. So if I wanted to create a presentation, right, I can do 16:9, 4:3. I'm going to do 16:9 here because I prefer 16:9 presentations. I can load up a presentation from here. Okay, and I see here that it's changed again slightly differently to what looks like a PowerPoint almost layout. Okay, so again, here is the video and here is the presentation, right? Again, sized correctly for each mode. So when it comes to videos, let's start with videos. How do these work? Well, they're moving items, they're moving images, they're moving, right? They're animated. There's some video involved in them. So therefore, the way that this works is it's essentially going to have to be saved as an MP4, right? But in order to actually have a video in the first place, it's going to have to be content present, right? So what I can do is I can simply do things like add in, as I've said, maybe some basic things like photos, okay? Maybe what I'll do is I'll go for my giftware store. So add in photos, right? Sorry. Add in giftware, not photos. See, it's taking it as technological, is it? That's new. So I'll just type in gifts, right? Gifts, there we go. So apologies for that. So I'm going to add in just a basic photo, right? So here's our basic photo here, right, of some gifts. In order to make this kind of more poppy, as the saying goes, or in order to make it a bit more life, add a bit more life to it, what I might want to do is add an animation. So I can do that from the animate tab here, and then I can choose an animation to apply. So what I might choose is the pan option here, right? Because this is an Instagram reel and I'm maybe showcasing these GIFs, right? Underneath here, you'll see in the timeline that this slide now reflects what's seen on the screen here. And this is the reason I'm doing this. You see here, okay, you can obviously see the GIFs, but underneath you can also see 5.0s. That essentially means 5.0 seconds. Okay, so that's how long this particular content element is. Okay, so this will play for 5 seconds on the user's screen. I can simply drag by left clicking and then dragging accordingly to what length I want it to be. So say, for example, I wanted this to be 10 seconds for some reason. Okay. So now this is 10 seconds. Okay, so there's not a lot happening in this 10 seconds. I fully recognize that. We'll get to that in a second. Of course, that's not the only thing I'm probably going to want to add. So I need to add a new page or add a new scene, as you might want to say. So I can simply just add a new scene and then add a new element. So in this element, what I might want to do is look for videos, right? So maybe this nice little video here. I might want to resize this because it is a reel. I want it to take up the full screen. That is a good principle to follow, by the way. Make sure you use the available real estate that's on the screen. I want to center it. Okay. So now you can see, I'm just going to move this very slowly so you can see it happening. Okay, so now you can see that this has become the next slide, the next scene. Okay, and this likewise is 10 seconds. Maybe I only want this to be 5 seconds, for example. And maybe I only want this to be 7 seconds, right? So 7 seconds and 5 seconds for some reason. All right, so now that will play for a total of 12 seconds. I can also, in between these, add a transition. Okay, and that's what this little button here does. So just beneath the plus, there's this little icon here, this kind of triangle play looking icon. That's the transition. If I click the plus button, that adds in a page between the two. But if I add the transition in, that adds a literal transition. Okay. And again, you're not going to see this in real time, unfortunately. Apologies for the slight lag here yet again. But you can, what you would see is that each of these provide a transition, so aptly named. So for example, dissolve will be a dissolve like the one you've just seen there. Okay. And then that will shorten the clip ever so slightly, but it will keep it within the 12 seconds that I wanted. Okay. I can then customize that transition should the need arise to either lengthen it or shorten it. And I now have the beginnings of a video playing. Okay. Again, it's going to be slightly lagged for yourselves. But what's happened there is, as it's played, it's done the transition and it's started the scene with the gift unwrapping there. Okay. The stop motion gift unwrapping. What I can do further to this is I can add in a little bit more in terms of things such as layers and so on and so forth, so that it gives a bit more life to the video. I can add in things like text, for example, to a video. Right? I can shorten then based on the positioning of that particular scene where I'm putting it. I can shorten or lengthen where I want that to appear. So it's becoming a bit of a video editor now, isn't it? So that will only appear at the 10-second mark, right? So that's my heading there. And so again, what I've done there is I've dragged the text to the page, or I've clicked on the add text box, right? I've changed the font size, so it's larger. I'm changing the font type to maybe something like Garrett. I'm going to type in the word GIFs. Let's say I'm not happy with where this starts. I can drag it so that it's slightly shorter, okay? So that it only appears at the 10-second mark or halfway through the clip itself, okay? So you can see here the word GIFs doesn't appear until I have it so positioned on the timeline. I can also add animations to that text, okay? For example, maybe block, just for example, okay? You're obviously not going to see that. And then I can do more. I can start adding in more scenes. Okay. I can also add in audio to my presentation. So likewise, I might want to type in the word happy music. Okay, bearing in mind that I have access to this library and you won't, unfortunately, unless you're premium. If you have audio that you want to use on your desktop that is commercially licensed or copyright free, you can do so as well. But either way, what would happen is I would simply drag the audio into the video, okay, or drag it into my screen, upload it, and then it appears just beneath. And I can then drag the audio to where I want it to start, okay? So again, I've added in just a layer, another layer of information to this video, okay? If I wanted to upload content myself from my desktop, I can do so. Right? Let's say I wanted to add in my company logo. I can go into the upload function, and hopefully you'll see this here, right? I can go into, say, something like my previous, or something like a previous, I will not upload that video. I can go into a previous, say, document, business. There's nothing confidential here, at least that I'm aware of. I can go into my other, and I can go into my branding, and I can upload my branding here, right? You can see here that the branding is getting uploaded, and then my logo is present. Okay, so that's the company logo. So again, I've just uploaded that from my desktop and added it to my document. I can then likewise drag to where I want it to appear or disappear. Okay. So maybe I only want my logo visible for a second, and I want the bottom screen to be visible for a few. So you can do all that. Okay. Likewise, maybe I only want that to appear at a particular time. Okay, so this is basically a video editor in itself. All right, so Canva can act as a video editor, and I haven't done anything outside of the free version except the music and the video, I will say, right? But if you're looking for basic video editing, Canva can do it. Okay, there's no reason why. You can do further things with the audio, things like fade and beat sync and so on. And look, that's self-explanatory. You can kind of play around with that. Select the audio clip and then just, as I said, see how it works. Okay, you can sync, again, once it's on premium, I should say, you can sync it to what's on the screen. Okay, so the next thing then that I want to show you is the export function for Canva here when it comes to videos. Your video is already sized accordingly. Okay, it's already edited to your specification and so on. But if you want to export a video, what to do is to go into the share button here, hit download. Okay, and if it's not pre-selected for you, which it should be if you're creating a video from scratch, select MP4 video. Okay, select MP4 video. Again, only available with the premium is the quality denotion, okay, or the being able to denote the quality. Generally speaking, 1080p is absolutely fine for social media, right? Because most people are viewing things on their phone, and yes, phones are really high definition nowadays and so on, and they have 4K screens and a lot more pixels. But ultimately, we got to assume that, or we can assume that people would prefer if a video was took up less data. So a smaller video size here, 1080p, will do perfectly. Okay, so that's basically what I'm saying. You can then select the scenes you want to extract. I obviously want to select everything because I'm creating a full video here, but I can extract individual scenes if I wanted. Okay, so I select scene 1 there, the 7-second clip, scene 2 there, the 5-second clip with gift unwrapping, or scene 3. But I'm obviously going to do it all. I then hit done, and I then hit download. Regardless of what type of file you're downloading, okay, it will take maybe a minute or two for the video to render, or a couple of seconds for the picture or the graphic to render. Just give it time, okay? Don't just exit out of this and think it's going to do it in the background, because it ain't, unfortunately. What will happen when this is done, and I'm going to let this play out here, is it will essentially download to your desktop, and then you can reuse that wherever you like. Okay, if you're in a rush, if you need to do quick edits and quick publishing, you can connect your Instagram, your Facebook, and so on using the default option there. Okay, so you can see here the video is now playable. I'll just cover them just in case there's anything there. The video is now playable on screen here. Okay. So again, you're not seeing the full, you're not hearing the music or anything, but that is a full video there. Okay. So similarly with presentations, you can look for or get inspired by specific designs. Okay. You can apply the specific designs. So say, for example, you were running a workshop on something, a health and safety workshop internally, right? Definitely not my area of expertise. I'm briefed on it, but not well enough. So health and safety workshop, right? You probably find that there's a presentation for you. So here we have a lot of pro presentations. So that is one good thing about the pro account. And I can simply import that then by selecting the presentation, hitting the button apply all pages, and it will bring all of the pages in for me. Okay. So you can see that here. You can then see and edit individual pieces of content as you normally would. Drag and drop, change positioning, and so on. Again, the difference here being that this is a presentation. So you can use, I'll just close that down. You can use the present button up here, the top, and the button beside the share, to present this as a presentation to the appropriate crowd and the appropriate people. Okay. If you're running dual screen, I think you can drag it over to your dual screen as well. It's usually on a laptop I'm running it. So again, full disclosure on those points of order. Okay. So presentations work similarly to videos in that there is a timeline, or sorry, I'm just exit out of this. There is a timeline, okay, but it's obviously different. These are obviously slides. You can apply transitions in between each of the slides. It's a pretty scary smile there. In between each of the slides, you can apply different transitions and so on. Okay, you can animate different elements within the presentation itself, just as you would with PowerPoint and so on. The beauty of this is that you have the entire creative library of Canva available to you, whereas we all know Microsoft PowerPoint presentations get a little bit blah after a while in terms of templates and things like that. So it is nice. It is nice to use. The other thing to know, and again, it's just a bit more of an advanced piece of information for you, is that when you're designing something, you can also rename the pages that you're designing on. So you can actually give pages individual names. Now, I'm not sure where it's gone here. Okay, just bear with me. So that's where we are. So you can actually give these pages individual names. Likewise, in your video, you can give pages individual names as well. Or in your social media designs, you can give individual names. So bear with me on this for a second. Right now, I'm going to show you each of them. Where this is useful is, again, if you are exporting different designs, different slides for different purposes, and you've designed them all in the one place, you can give each of them a specific name. Here we go. So for example, if we were designing an Instagram post here, we could say that this is Instagram post 1, right? Infographic 1, and so on. When we export these designs, right, if we were to export them all together as JPEGs or as PNGs, they'll be zipped up, okay? And then they will be saved as JPEGs in that zip file, but the names will be applied accordingly, okay? Likewise, with our video, if we wanted to rename our individual scenes and so on, what we can do is we can go into grid view here, which gives us an overview of our overall template, right, or of our overall design, thing that we're creating. And we can add in a page title here. Okay, so we can add in a page title, for example, slide 1, gift box, and so on. And again, a similar situation applies. Okay, so maybe we want to add in, then we can just click below, slide 3, a blank slide, right, because it is blank, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of different things happening here in the background that we can just do to make our life, or use to make our life a little bit easier. Outside of this, right, context is the more advanced functionality of Canva, okay? So I'm going to slightly jump here, kind of unnaturally, to the Pro Tools, if you'll indulge me for a moment, okay? The Pro Tools of Canva, you only get if you obviously have access to by paying for them. And you can upgrade your account using that kind of window that you saw earlier. You can get a free trial for the month. You can also set up what we call a Teams account for €24 or €25 now, I think, for up to 5 people. Okay, so 5 people can have access to a premium account, same dashboard. They can have individual accounts as well, and you can design together as a team. Okay, but out of the box, when it comes to premium, one of the coolest things and one of the most useful things for the businesses that are in the room, particularly those that have products and so on, is the background removal tool. Okay, that comes with the ability to remove backgrounds from photos. So, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for another image. I'm going to keep all of this internal. I'm going to search for, again, maybe giftware, gifts. Okay, and I'm going to look for a photo that's complicated, that has a lot going on in it, right? Perhaps perhaps this one here. And I'm going to hope this works, right? And what I want to do is perhaps have a slightly different background to this, or maybe this is a product shot I took and I want to apply maybe a white marble background and not a wooden background. Well, I can do that. Okay, I can do that in Canva. A simple way to do it is simply just to hit the background remover. And this means that, or this, you have to have a premium account for this. So it means that if you've got a free account, you're not going to have access to it straight away. But if I hit the BG remover, it should remove the background, and it's removed it quite well there. Okay, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. What I can then do is I can go into elements. I can look for, say, background, so marble background. Okay, and I can bring in a marble background that I like. So, for example, this one. I can resize it. Okay, then I can reposition it. Use the layers, and you can see here that that's become my background, and that the graphics, okay, the main graphic, the photograph is now sitting on top of that. Okay. Likewise, I'm just going to take that particular layer out now. Oops. So I'm going to go back into my position, layers, and take this out. Likewise, I could just have a solid color or a gradient as a background. And to do that, this is a free tool. Again, just another element to teach you about. I can simply select the color I want to add to the background. And this is true for any background or any solid color. Or I can add a gradient. Okay, and I can choose the colors I want in my gradient. Right, so how have I done that? What I've done is I've gone into the thing that I want to recolor, the background in this case, right? I need to go into the background here itself, right? I go into background color here. I've gone into this little option here, add a new color, and I've chosen gradient. Okay, and then I've chosen what colors I want to appear in my gradient. Okay, so again, go for kind of an Instagram feel here almost. So maybe I want it radial there or something like that. Okay, so you can see that you can do a lot of manipulation with the graphics as they stand. Okay, I can also double click and drag the content, the photo in this case, so that I can reposition it. Okay, and it doesn't look great. I fully recognize that, but I chose a complicated background so that you could actually see the background remover in real time. Likewise, we also have, and I'm aware of time as well, likewise, we also have a couple of other premium elements available to us, and they're okay. Okay, the more premium tools are okay in terms of the AI background removal. So I'll show you that now. So I'm going to go back into elements here, and I'm going to choose people. Okay, I'm going to look for people. And I'm going to choose this particular graphic here. I have not used this one before, so I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but we'll see. So let's say, for example, what I want in this situation is I want to remove the background. I can do that very quickly from the people, right? So we see here that once it appears on your screen, we see here that it's now become a kind of a transparent photo. But maybe I want to do a bit more than that, right? Maybe I want to remove a person. I can do that using the AI tools, using something called Magic Eraser. Okay, and what I can simply do, hopefully, is I can wipe over a person that I want to take out. So I'm going to take out the guy at the end here because he looks too smug with himself. All right, she's going to look like she's talking to herself as well. So I'm going to take him out. I'm going to erase, and obviously it's going to erase it. Okay, if it was a more complex situation, yeah. If it was more, if there was a background involved, if the orange background was still there, then that person, right, or that person would be removed, but the orange background would stay. So it would use content awareness to refill the background. Likewise, I can simply click what I want to remove. Okay, so let's say I wanted to remove this lovely gentleman here from the photo. I could do that. I'm not sure how it's going to fare with the chair, but we'll see. Okay, so you can see how scary it is and how easy it is to remove people. Okay, that's a bit too good, I think. And it looks like they're talking to ghosts now. So I'm going to keep him in for the time being, right? Likewise, I can also do what we call magic grab. And magic grabs allows me to manipulate, oops, I should say grab. to manipulate an individual element within a photo as well. Okay, so that I can drag a person around. Now, as I said, in this case, it's not great. Okay, so it looks like that's a bit, there's a hollow piece here. The chair hasn't copied the full thing. So yeah, the magic grab in this case isn't great, but that's in theory what it allows me to do. Okay, so you're aware of some of the more advanced tools. Okay. So the last thing within the AI context, I suppose, is things like grab text, magic edit, and so on, magic expand. So I'll show you the magic edit. So what I might want to do is, let's see, does this work? Okay, I might want to have her holding a sign saying hello instead, right? I'm going to be really, really madcap here and see how well it goes. Okay, what this allows me to do is just add in new content elements. And I know this is not Intro to Canva for beginners, but I just want you to see, yeah, so we see here. And it's not bad, right? It still looks pretty scary, but I mean, that's not bad, right? The background there, we probably could have done without removing the background, to be honest with you. But, you know, she has her sign, right? We could take that out. We could cover it over and we could put in new text there or something like that. So you can basically use these tools, right, to push a little bit further, to have somebody do something you want a little bit more. Likewise, in the apps section, right, you also have access to various different tools outside of what you've been using so far. So things like QR codes, you can generate QR codes, okay? Things like, excuse me, I'm looking for the AI powered ones now. Things like AI voiceovers, AI avatars, right? These allow you to create doppelgangers, okay? Or people, I should say, so that they can talk about what it is that you want to talk about, okay? So again, all available to you through Canva. These are okay. They do sound a little bit robotic, a little bit creepy sometimes. There are tools out there that are much better at this. Tools like InVideo and Lumen 5 allow you to create doppelgangers of yourself, okay? And you can actually record a statement and have it played back in your voice. The last thing then, before we break, you'll be happy to know that we're going to look at is Magic Media. And I've already kind of shown you to some degree some of the AI tools, but Magic Media is basically a content generator. And you've seen some success. We've seen some success earlier in terms of the image that we generated. But where it really does well is in things like abstract images and landscapes. So again, I'm going to type in an abstract landscape and hopefully generate something that looks a little bit surreal. Okay, so I'm going to say maybe, let's say we were a school and we wanted to generate dinosaur sitting outside a school learning. I've seen things like this generated at these workshops before, right? Again, sounds completely insane, but this is where AI wants you to go. Okay, and we'll see what kind of image it generates. It usually takes a second. Let me just see how this does. Okay, so there we go. That's not too bad. That looks, again, a bit concerning, but I mean, that's not too bad at all, right? That's actually not too bad at all. Pretty scary stuff, but pretty good in terms of what it's generated. Okay. Probably want to go with a slightly friendlier looking dinosaur. This one here is a bit friendlier, looks more like a herbivore. Doesn't look like he's about to cause mass panic. So we have here our dinosaur outside our school with our children, all right? So again, nothing too, he looks like he's on a skateboard actually, but nothing too advanced here, okay? We can also do graphics as we saw earlier. I'm not going to go too far into that again. You can describe what you want to see in the graphics. That's illustration and vectors and things like that. The last thing is videos. Now, this is okay. Okay, again, this is where it gets a little bit comedic sometimes. And as they say themselves, scenes with people or animals may not look quite right. So what I'm going to say is a human hugging a dog, right? So I'm really going to push the technology in a vet. Happy. Okay. What I will say when it comes to AI, right? We've another minute or two, so I'm just going to let this do its thing in the background. What I will say about AI is it's really important to know that regardless of the tool you're using, be it ChatGPT, Magic Media, Gemini or Claude or any of those kinds of tools, in video, AI generators, and so on. The more context you give something, the better the results are. So those tools I mentioned at the very start, the customer persona, the customer profile, the strategy, how you're going to funnel your users, what kind of content you're going to show them. If you tell the tool, or if you give the tool as much information as possible, generally speaking, the results are far more accurate. They're far more nuanced. If you just type in, I want a digital strategy for a company, you're just going to get a bland list of things that you do, like online ads and social media posting, post 3 times a week and so on. Whereas if you're far more nuanced, I'm a giftware store operating in Wexford Town, so on and so forth. My type of customer is this, and our focus is on, all right, let's see how this turned out in a second. Our focus is on great customer service and so on. You'll find the results will be a lot more personalized to location, gender, age, and so on. Okay. So that's all I'm saying is just make sure that the prompt you give the tool is as clear as possible, as succinct as possible. Do you know what? I stand corrected. That doesn't look too bad, does it? Unfortunately, you're going to have to wait to see this on the YouTube video. If you don't watch it for anything else, you can watch this for the end of it. The dog is looking happy. The owner's looking happy, and it looks like a veterinary surgery. I'll just show you the end of the video there. You can see it. Right. That's pretty good, right? I expected the dogs to morph together and the human to morph together, but it didn't happen. So that's great. The dog looks quite happy, right? So does the owners. Okay, so Magic Media, again, really good when it works, but pretty horrific when it doesn't, right? It looks pretty scary. So just be careful if you're generating something. Just make sure, again, it's organizational dependent and so on. You're going to have your own rules and guidelines for how you use AI. It really doesn't matter what the tool is, though. It's the person who's using it. Make sure that you're giving it as much context as possible. If you're using things like Copilot, etc., to come up with social media posts and so on, you can plug in all of your ideas. You can plug in all of your documents and upload them and allow say Copilot to read them and understand them and so on. So look, that's Canva, right? I'm not going to say at a beginner's level, because we've gone even probably beyond the beginner's level. I hope I haven't lost you at any point, but I hope it gives you an idea as to just how wide a topic Canva is and how good it is. I mean, once you're familiar with the interface and once you start messing around with it and kind of playing around with it, let's be honest, you're going to have the same kind of skills that I have, right? Apart from the few bad jokes here and there, the same kind of skills in terms of content creation. You'll be able to go in and create things like this. I'll show you now in a second, and organize them in your project windows. Okay, so you're able to go in and organize things and create folders in your project windows. Okay, you can do things like, we won't go for social media bootcamp, so you can create things like social media graphics for Valentine's Day. Okay, if the need arises, as you can see that we did here, really simple stuff where we just used basic content elements and customize them in some way. Okay, you can do things like create presentations, okay, like we did here. Okay, this presentation was created in Canva, likewise here. So you can do literally anything with Canva. Just make sure you stay organized. Make sure that you use this projects tab to keep everything in a safe space and in a nice organized way. Okay, so that is it. You'll be happy to know. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. On behalf of the local enterprise office in Wexford, and on behalf of myself, more importantly, I really, really appreciate it. I know that Canva can be such a beast to conquer, as I've already said, but at the end of the day, practice will make perfect. So I've just shared that download there with you now. I hope you see it. If you don't, let me know. I can upload it as an attachment into the chat as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time, for your patience. I'll just upload this into the chat as well. See if we can do that. Okay, there we go. Complete that set download. Send it on to Angie or the Leo team or your contact, and let us know if there's anything else we can do. I'm going to drop my email into the chat as well. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, be it public or private sector. If there's any questions, you have any kind of simple follow-up questions, just email me. I have no problem answering them. No one's going to get billed for anything or anything like that. These trainings are meant to supplement your knowledge. okay, and to help. And if there's anything after this that you're still not clear on, I'm more than happy to point you, signpost you in the right direction. Thank you all. Okay, goodbye. And sorry, if I should say, if you have any questions, ask away now. I'm here. Thank you all. Angie will be in touch with the link to this video, and there'll be a couple of other resources as well. One of them will be a social media content calendar from HubSpot that has like different interesting dates dotted throughout it. There's some video tutorials as well, some more advanced things that you can do with Canva, and so on. And any other resources that I think are relevant, I'll send on to you. But that's mainly the bulk of what you'll hear from. Okay, thank you all.